I was born royal, a high-ranking prince, but that didn't stop my own brother from putting an arrow in my back. That cheap shot sent me into a deep coma. The motive: I'm the son of the first queen who died from a mysterious poisoning, a cold case that nobody ever solved. So after taking that arrow, I was out cold for 6 long years. While my body slept, my soul got isekai'd straight to the Hall of Heroes, the VIP lounge for legends who changed history. That's where I ended up. At first, the legends were hyped, thinking a kid making the cut must be some kind of prodigy. But the reality check hit fast. I wasn't special. I was weak, talentless, and definitely 0% hero material in my timeline. But the Hall of Heroes doesn't accept losers, so they forced me into a brutal training arc that lasted 1,000 years. I grinded until I was finally on their level. After a millennium of blood and sweat, my physical body finally snapped out of the coma. The same legends who roasted me for centuries were now wishing me luck. I flashed a grin and stepped back into the light. Since I'm not planning on playing the hero game, I guess I won't be seeing them again. My eyes shot open, but man, my body felt like jelly. I couldn't even lift a finger. I am Davia Lown, first prince of a small kingdom. The snakes who took out my mother and tried to delete me, they better watch their backs. The innocent weakling they knew is dead and gone. Day in, day out, only one loyal maid showed up to keep me breathing. She was my only lifeline. Alive. I played possum, moving only when she left to avoid blowing my cover. I dragged myself to the calendar, clueless about the date. When I saw how much time had passed, the truth hit harder than the arrow. I've been a vegetable for 6 years. 6 years since that scumbag brother of mine tried to end me. And now, it's payback time. But to hijack control of my family, I need to fix this withered vessel of a body. I tried casting some high-tier magic I learned on the other side, but nothing. I couldn't figure out why it was glitching. Back in the hero realm, I was tutored by the best. Saint Pereire herself, yeah, the divine legend, was my personal teacher. She taught me the arts. But with the magic failing, I started panic thinking my 1,000-year grind was going to vanish in the real world. Just as any normal guy would have rage quit after hours of failure, something clicked. The divine healing kicked in. A massive burst of green light flooded the room, and suddenly my frail body, which felt like a 300-year-old corpse, was overflowing with raw energy. Seeing my old stomping grounds, I stretched out and shouted praises to the sun god. Unfortunately, I didn't hear the maid come back in. She burst into tears seeing her coma patient standing tall. Later, the castle doctor ran tests and was shook. My stats weren't just good, they were miraculously better than before. He called it unexplainable. Then the vibe shifted. Enter Lines Barrett, the woman who poisoned my mom and stole the title of queen. Trailing her were her spawn, second Prince Carlos and third Prince Benedict. Carlos, the guy who thought he successfully assassinated me. The queen asked if I saw the shooter's face all those years ago. I looked them dead in the eye. Oh, absolutely. And trying to kill royalty, that's high treason, isn't it? The culprit's blood ran cold. But Mommy Dearest just let out a sarcastic laugh, claiming the case was officially closed years ago. Even the doctor felt the cringe in the air. He mumbled I'd be fully healed in days, and got out of there fast. Lines dropped the act immediately. Would have been cleaner if you just died. I smirked. Does my breathing annoy you that much? Carlos chimed in, calling it a tragedy. A tragedy for the kingdom, he meant. Having a victim prince sleeping on the job. For so many years. He sneered that a pathetic invalid has no shot at the crown. With that final insult, they walked out. Alone again, our protagonist realized something wild. I had been channeling magic right in front of their faces, and they didn't spot a thing. I figured my power level is so far beyond theirs, I'm practically invisible to their radar. Seeing the wicked queen and her brats made my blood boil. I wanted to exact revenge right then and there, but I kept my cool. Spending a millennium in a holy temple does wonders for impulse control. Oh, I'll get my revenge, but I need to play the long game. First things first though, I'm starving. What's the menu looking like for my first meal in 6 years? 15 days later, got a fresh cut, got my holy powers back, and I've been grinding in my room. Turns out when you're this efficient, time drags. I'm bored out of my mind waiting for the next move. On the bright side, his mana control had leveled up insanely fast, kickstarting his recovery into overdrive. Between spammable healing spells, his necromancer's grasp of human anatomy, and the intense medical drills from his master, getting back to 100% was basically a walk in the park. He put that isolation training to the test, and realized magic is the ultimate life hack. Still, one tiny detail was driving him up the wall. His maid, Amy, was following the doctor's orders like they were holy scripture, meaning soup, every single day. Honestly, he felt like a toothless grandpa who couldn't handle solid food. Amy looked guilty, but claimed her hands were tied. David wasn't having it. He insisted. That one bowl wouldn't keep him alive, so he told her to bring 5 more. Right now. She froze, totally blindsided by the request, but David promised he'd wipe every bowl clean if she just kept them coming. David knew that for a normal dude, that's a stomachache waiting to happen, but with his restoration magic, burning calories like crazy, he needed the fuel. Finally, after a proper feast, His soul felt at peace. The only downside, massive calorie intake meant frequent trips to the bathroom. Later, David dug through some documents and uncovered a harsh reality. Amy started apologizing profusely, but David cut her off. It wasn't her fault. It hit him his monster appetite was actually bankrupting the family. Worse, he realized that Amy was the last maid standing. The family's financial ruin had cleared out the entire staff. And let's be real, this castle is way too massive for one person to run solo. Worried about their survival, David got straight to the point. What are our total assets? Amy dropped the bomb, only 6,000 gold coins left. David figured they could budget that out, but then came the twist. Amy admitted they were supposed to get 500 gold a month, but lately, less than 100. David immediately asked if they were getting shaken down. She shook her head. He asked about her salary, but the silence said it all. She hadn't seen a regular paycheck in ages. Amy couldn't lie to his face. She confessed she was scraping by on a third of her original wages. Hearing this, David realized she wasn't just generous, she was dangerously loyal, working under these conditions. That's insanity. Sure, maids are often treated like noble property, but Amy was an artist's daughter. Bad luck forced her into this life. But keeping this prince in his giant castle alive for 6 years all alone, that's a heroic grind. She'd practically burned her own savings just to keep him breathing. Guilt hit David hard. He ordered her to withdraw all her unpaid wages from their remaining funds immediately. Amy refused flat out, arguing they didn't even have budget for tomorrow's food, so she wouldn't take a dime. David sighed and told her to stop, treating him like a fragile prince. He was fully recovered and didn't need a babysitter anymore. Besides the title, Prince felt cold like a wall between them. He hated it, especially since she was the only one who stuck by him when the world turned its back. Soon after, the plot thickens. David gets a visit from a counselor of the Royal Finance Department. The guy claims the funds are locked down, but he's too distracted by the dude's ridiculous mustache. He notices the sneers from the entourage. Even Mustache Guy is looking down on him. But instead of cowering, David stares him down. Don't block my request. He points out he should be getting around 500 gold, yet sees less than half. He wants answers. The counselor smirks, explaining that castle maintenance costs are deducted from the allowance, so they only get the scraps. However, David is losing patience with this garbage excuse. Everyone can see the castle has cracked floors and a jungle for a garden. A dump like this shouldn't cost a fortune to maintain. Even David knows it's a scam. It's rare for a royal to audit their own books, but he's not backing down. Meanwhile, the counselor doubles down, insisting the maintenance fund is off limits. The finance department is stonewalling him, claiming they only handle budget management, not loan requests. David instantly sees through the bureaucracy. He realizes not a single suit in this room has the guts to own the financial mess. He prepares to storm out, but the advisor tries to pivot, asking if the prince plans to hit up the maintenance department next. David shuts that down immediately. He knows it's a waste of time. Those guys are experts at manufacturing excuses, not solutions. Instead of fixing problems, they play the blame game. Before exiting, David drops a cold line to the advisor. Enjoy spending that cash. Referring, of course, to the funds still lining his pockets. As David strides through the palace halls, the reality of his isolation sets in. It's no mystery why every servant except Amy ghosted this place. They weren't just underpaid, they were treated like trash by the nobility, leaving poor Amy to carry the weight of the entire castle. Suddenly, David drops a heavy request on Amy, "Get me a sword." The maid freezes, completely blindsided by the demand. He plays it cool, assuring her he's not planning a massacre or anything crazy. Relieved but hesitant, Amy runs off to fetch the steel. Left alone, David's internal monologue turns dark. He won't hurt a person because the enemy's on his hit list. They don't even qualify as human anymore. But the protagonist knows he's walking on thin ice right now. He can't start taking heads without a solid strategy. He's already a social pariah in the castle. Getting caught now would be a disaster. Plus, he refuses to drag himself down to the gutter level of those corrupt nobles. Cut to a new scene. David and his maid stand over a dead boar. David lies through his teeth, claiming he just found the carcass. Yeah, right. He absolutely hunted that beast and is currently prepping it for a feast. Amy is losing it, though. She panics, insisting that royal hands should never touch something so gruesome. She begs him to be careful and not get hurt again. David brushes it off, saying it's fine as long as they keep it on the down low. He knows the score. Even if he wanted an audience with the king, the guards would block him. And as for the rest of the court, he's totally powerless there too. David is fully aware the queen is pulling strings to ruin his life. But joke's on them. As an apprentice of Hercules, he's got the survival skills to weather this storm. David tells Amy to relax because that boar is tonight's dinner, not a threat. Meanwhile, deep in the queen's chambers, the villainess confesses to a maid that David is getting under her skin. He feels completely different from the boy who went into the coma. Her maid Shirley recites the official medical report, claiming the prince is barely mobile and needs over a year to recover. The queen, however, isn't buying it. She demands to know if the intel is flawed. She reminds Shirley that despite being a Class A informant for the Black Moon, here she's just a lowly servant. It's revealed that Shirley is actually an elite operative from the Assassin's Guild, based in the capital of Round the Black Moon. Even with a top-tier spy, the Queen can't shake her paranoia. Now that the prince is awake, the Queen knows the king has already written him off. And sure, the kid is physically weak from the coma, but she won't be able to sleep soundly until she wipes the prince off the board permanently. Shirley, however, drops a warning, reminding the Queen that her assassin comrades don't care about royal titles. Keep disrespecting them, and there will be consequences. Rattled, the Queen backpedals, claiming she was just venting. She switches gears, saying she wishes she could just sabotage the prince's plans right now. She threatens that if things go south, it'll be Shirley paying the price. With that threat hanging in the air, she dismisses the maid. Once alone, the Queen's eyes go cold. She decides it's time to put down the disobedient dogs. She needs to clean house before making her next move, and she is itching for the chance. Flashback time. The protagonist remembers learning that mana control is like threading a single fiber. Through hundreds of needles, it requires extreme patience and precision. His master warned him that the most dangerous areas to target are the veins in the brain. Screw that up and you're going blind instantly. Looking back at his mentors, the protagonist recalls thinking Priestess Ro Ayas was just a lush who could split the ocean in two with a drunken whisper. The other mentor was a necromancer who acted more holy than Ro Ayas ever did. Despite being a legendary mage, she just loved showing off her massive staff. Then the goddess Hypocria, also known as Sister Gia, stepped in during the experiment, vowing to get the job done. She reminded him that people didn't just come to gawk at her, they came to learn the arts. She challenged David to push harder, insisting that he needs to put more faith in his masters if he wants to survive. He knew he could upgrade his skills, sure, but the moment he actually tried to do it, it was such a traumatic nightmare that he swore he'd never touch that level of hell again. Cut to the present. Amy catches him sneaking around outside the palace. She hits him with the, "Prince, why are you creeping in the gardens again?" He plays it cool, claiming the weather is a vibe and the forest looks extra fancy today. Then he dismisses her, telling Amy to get back to her grind and only bug him if it's a total emergency. David smirks, realizing old Amy would have totally lost it if she caught him doing this. Like wading into danger, no way. But she seems to be chilling out even if she still refuses to sit and eat with him like a normal person. David wonders if his master plan to break down her walls is actually working. Anyway, he finds the perfect away from keyboard spot in the middle of the garden. It's low-key and quiet, finally time to get to work. He drops into his meditation stance, focusing on sucking up every ounce of surrounding mana. David figures as long as the air is crisp, he's not just breathing oxygen, he's inhaling raw power from nature itself. Rumor has it, this ancient cheat code was invented by Odin himself and passed down through the god-tier bloodlines. But even with this OP technique, there's a hard cap on how much mana a user can store. You gotta train hard just to expand your tank capacity. However, with this hack, mana that usually takes months to farm can be gathered in just a few days. It is literally a miraculous glitch. Our protagonist thinks if the public found out, the whole country would start a revolution. But he's not about to share this exploit with anyone. I mean, it's not like just any noob can pull it off. Suddenly, mid-meditation, he feels eyes on him. He wonders who's lurking in the bushes, but the stalker realizes they've been busted, and they bolt immediately. David sighs, thinking it's been a while since he had a spectator, but chasing them is just asking for drama. He decides to let it slide. Better to keep up the fragile, useless prince act. Being underestimated lets him power level in peace. But now, he's got a boss battle to deal with the mana circle. David knows the rules. Priests can't use magic, mages can't use holy power. And necromancy, that's a forbidden art no one touches. But he's built different. He can wield priest, mage, and necromancer skills all at once. All thanks to those psycho temple masters and 2 mad scientists. Just remembering that training arc makes him want to barf. Anyway, standard mages etch a mana circle on their actual hearts. Bad news, that method crashes when you mix necromancy and holy power. If he tried those vanilla strats, his heart would literally explode. Enter the circle of arteries. This method involves fusing the arteries across his entire body to create an impenetrable, mana-resistant shield. By doing this, David turns his whole body into a circuit, heart included. It wouldn't just stop the elemental clash, it would unlock insane results. But let's be real, this is basically extreme body modification. One glitch, one mistake, fatal. That's why he's been avoiding it. Last time, he only survived because his masters carried him. Now that he's solo, the odds are looking sketchy. Stressing over it triggers a flashback. He hallucinates his old masters and realizes, hey, even dying right here is better than spending 1,000 years in that hellhole temple. With that mindset, he locks in. Later, Amy is pacing around. It's dinner time, and the prince is a no-show. Weird. He never misses a meal. She was told strictly not to disturb him, unless the world was ending. But she's genuinely worried. Plus, if he dies on her watch, Her head is on the chopping block. Suddenly, the protagonist stumbles into view. He mumbles an apology for keeping her waiting. David compliments her grit, but before he can finish, he collapses right onto her. Amy turns bright red, thinking he's making a romantic move. But nope, the guy is just running on fumes. He was purely using her as a wall. His legs give out and he hits the floor hard, leaving Amy totally freaked out about his health. Fade to black. The protagonist snaps awake, back in his bed, realizing he blacked out the second he saw her. Speaking of Amy, David spots her. Waking up to find Amy passed out right next to him is a gut punch. He knows he has dragged her into his messy life yet again. But there is a major silver lining, the mana circle formation. It has finally hit 100% completion. It is absolutely flawless. All three powers are surging through his veins like high-voltage electricity. And this weird circle is not just for show. It has got serious effects. David can literally feel the atmospheric mana getting heavy in the room. He is leveled up big time. Just breathing allows him to siphon mana from the air. He feels like a single finger twitch. Could unleash any basic spell, even restoration magic. Flash forward 5 months, and the vibe has completely shifted. Amy is busy prepping ingredients while David eyes the meal, actually thinking his diet is not half bad lately. Ever since his arterial circle stabilized his life, some mystery benefactor has been playing Secret Santa, dropping off fresh meat and veggies at the castle gates. At first, he suspected the queen was plotting something shady, but pulling off a scheme this smooth without a clear motive, unlikely. David's gut says someone is legit trying to help him out, even if their identity remains a total mystery. He knows they are out there. He has spread his mana net across the entire castle trying to ping their location. Still zero response on the donor. But on the flip side, his radar is now sensitive enough to track anyone coming or going. Amy is beaming, claiming their food shortage is history, but David cuts the celebration short. Company's coming. He senses visitors closing in fast, probably another one of the queen's rats coming to sniff around. Back in his quarters, the protagonist switches to sick prince mode just as the guests barge in. A priest starts scanning his vitals, dropping the passive-aggressive question, so Prince think he will be recovering anytime soon. Then he hits him with the excuse that because the prince has been bedridden so long, using holy magic now would be too dangerous. David is internally rolling his eyes. This guy is spewing absolute garbage. He has not even cast a basic tier 1 heal yet. The guy has zero intention of helping. And David knows this dude is supposed to be God's representative in this nation. Watching a holy man trash his duties just to follow some shady orders is straight up pathetic. Honestly, the priest should just save his breath. Everyone in the room knows he is faking his concern. But joke is on them, David is not dying. In fact, he is practically fully recovered. David claps back, mentioning that with the silver relic Priya gave him, fixing these scratches should be child's play. The priest gets defensive fast. You are just a layman, Prince. You have no clue. He starts rambling about how holy power is exclusive intellectual property for priests, and daring to lecture him makes David as arrogant as Prince Charles. Low blow. Amy is not having it. She steps up, snapping at Father Boris for running his mouth like that. Bad move. The priest's ego cannot handle a maid talking back. Snap. He slaps the poor girl right across the face. David's blood boils. He wants to end this guy, but breaking character now blows his cover. Boris starts making excuses, claiming he had to discipline her for the prince's own reputation. Can't have servants acting wild, right? Then he gets creepy, smirking that it is a shame to hurt such a pretty face because she has got a lovely smile. Gross. That does it. David is shaking with rage, ready to leap out of bed and throttle the guy. Boris decides to bounce but demands Amy walk him out. He tosses a casual, "See you in 15 days" over his shoulder. For the next checkup, David gives Amy a nod, go with him. She looks terrified, clearly wanting to refuse, but she trusts her prince. She follows orders. Once they are in the hall, Boris drops the act. He corners her, demanding she meet him tonight, alone. The prince's life is on you, he hisses. You want him to survive. You do exactly what I say. Truth is, Boris could not care less about healing anyone. He just wants to use Amy for a night and toss her aside like trash. Back inside, the prince is not sick anymore. He is pure rage. He stands up, full height. He did not spend years building his dignity just to sit there and watch this happen. He remembers Lady Daphne's lecture, "Control your anger or you are just a beast." Well, screw that. The priest's goons freeze in pure terror, seeing the crippled prince striding toward them. David thinks to himself that righteous fury isn't a weakness, it is fuel. It is his purpose right now. If chilling out is how you recover, then pure rage is the engine that drives progress. The guards do not even stand a chance. They are the first to fall to his blade. Meanwhile, the scumbag priest is still putting the squeeze on Amy, admitting he is working on the queen's orders. So Boris really thinks a simple weakling prince is a non-factor, and his maid, even less relevant. He's actually out here bragging that the entire kingdom is on the same page. He figures he's got a blank check to do whatever twisted stuff he wants. To them, zero consequences, because he's got the queen's protection guaranteed. But the second those words land, David just starts cracking up, claiming he needed an excuse to go scorched earth, and he just found the perfect trigger. He points his blade right at the priest and turns to Amy. What's the price for disrespecting royalty? The priest is shook, stammering about how the hell the prince is even standing. David cuts him off cold as ice. There's a reason you're stuck at the bottom of the totem pole, pal. Your so-called holy magic was always trash. Then the protagonist locks eyes with Amy, reminding her, I told you to answer me. I don't like repeating myself. That snaps her out of it. Amy doesn't stutter this time. The penalty for blasphemy against the crown is immediate execution. Boom. Sentence passed. The protagonist drops the hammer on Boris instantly. With his dying breath, the priest chokes out that the queen isn't going to let this slide. David thanks the fake holy man for the heads up, but promises that every single person backing him is going down next, and he doesn't waste a second hunting down the queen. The moment she spots him, she gasps, "You must be insane to kill a man of the cloth. He was a disciple of the Holy Order." The MC shrugs it off. "The guy threatened my life, so I handled him according to the law." The queen looks ready to throw hands, but he cuts in. "Before I went under, the kingdom's laws weren't this savage." He points out the king has been awfully quiet while this chaos unfolds. Plus, he doesn't see why he should get grounded for taking out trash that disrespected royalty. Unless, of course, the royal crest implies a lower rank than a grunt disciple, since he's been in a coma. That burns. The queen is absolutely fuming, but she knows she has to retreat for now. She claps back. "You have zero proof. And even if he did, poking the Holy Order bear is pure stupidity." She sneers, claiming he definitely inherited his mother's brain cells, calling them both dumb. She takes the opportunity to drag him and his mom through the mud. David's vibe instantly darkens. "It's bad manners to trash someone's parents," he says, voice low, "especially the dead ones." Then, he draws his sword threat level midnight. But snap, the queen's minions swarm in to shield her. That's when it clicks for the MC. This is why she's so bold. She's got human shields on standby. He smirks, "I'd love to keep playing, but let's save this for later." But he adds, "Running your mouth is just hammering another nail into your coffin." Therefore, he claims that trying to kill a royal implies the exact same death wish. The queen freezes. She realizes David knows it was her son, Carlos, who ordered the hit. The protagonist isn't dumb enough to hide an ace up his sleeve forever. After all, that's not his style. He brings up the slap she gave him while he was in a coma, proof she has zero class. He tells her to start acting like a lady, then roasts her room. This place is a pigsty, far from elegant. And since she scared off all the staff, guess who's on cleaning duty? She's now responsible for scrubbing this place spotless as fast as possible. Otherwise, he says some very nasty rumors might start trending. He warns the queen to choose her next moves, very carefully, because he's done letting things slide behind his back. David walks out like a boss. The queen, she absolutely loses it, screaming at her guild lackeys, smashing up her room. Now that she understands the prince's true colors, her urge to delete him from existence hits an all-time high. However, she wants him to suffer before he logs out for good. It didn't take long for the gossip to start. People whispered that the prince woke up totally unhinged and off to priest for no reason. But joke's on them, this was all part of the MC's master plan. Once the queen found out, everyone else did too, but they're missing context. They just see a prince with blood on his hands. With half the palace staff on Team Queen, David's reputation hits rock bottom. But it's not all bad news. Amy reports in telling him that fresh supplies just magically appeared. Davy was like, "I'm good on the medicinal herbs," but Amy insisted someone out there must recognize his good vibes and wanted to pay it back. Davy shot her a look. "You really think I'm a good person?" Zero hesitation. She said, "Yes," instantly, even after watching the prince delete a guy right in front of her face. Amy's loyalty was rock solid. She hadn't flipped on him. Davy realized this girl was actually built different. A total legend. Their heart-to-heart got crashed by a new arrival. Enter Vespers the Grand Chamberlain and royal heavy hitter. He told the prince he dragged in some sinners straight from the queen's hit list. Vespers spilled the tea. These guys had been skimming the palace treasury, and a few even tried to make a run for it. Busted. The prince looked them over and asked, "So what's the going rate for betrayal these days?" The chamberlain didn't sugarcoat it. Usually it's execution for them and their whole bloodline. But hey, balls in the prince's court. Davy smirked, mentioning the rumors, painting him as some bloodthirsty maniac lately. Should I live up to the hype? The criminals lost it, begging for mercy on their knees. In response, the prince ordered the punishment to fit the crime perfectly. But first, throw them in the dungeon. No food, no water, for 9 straight days. Technically, that was the queen's cruel playbook. Davy hated it, but he knew how to flip the script to his advantage. Later on, the prince cleaned house, ordered new staff hired, but kept Amy as his MVP, with a massive pay raise, obviously. Then he dropped the big question, "Can I get a meeting with my dad?" Vespers shut that down fast. The prince pressed him, "Who's blocking me, the king or his wife, the queen?" Silence. The chamberlain played the "I'm just the messenger" card. He told the prince to chill and have patience. His request would get approved eventually. Davy noted it. As the Chamberlain turned to leave, our protagonist dropped a casual bomb about the food. All those secret meals, yeah, he didn't need the Chamberlain sending any more medicinal herbs on the side. Vespers played innocent, claiming he had no clue what Davy was talking about. Maybe the prince was just being blessed by the universe for his gentle soul. Then he added a cliffhanger: someone else was outside waiting to visit. He bowed out. And even though Vespers denied being the supply drop guy, our main character knew the truth. It was definitely him smuggling in the food and meds. I mean, Vespers runs the king's staff and has known Davy since he was in diapers. Davy just hadn't realized he had another ally in the palace besides Amy. Anyway, time to lock in. Visitors incoming. Amy popped back in, announcing the arrival of the fourth prince and second princess. They were here for him. Suddenly, the princess burst into the room like a hurricane. Meet Winley Al Rown. She was so hyped to see her big brother, she literally launched herself at him, tackled him straight to the floor. Amy almost had a heart attack seeing the prince go down. But then her brother stepped in, warning Winley to chill out. Enter Barris Al Rown, the fourth prince and Winley's twin. He added that he was relieved to see Davy looking healthy. Quick lore drop: King Krianis. Al Rown has kids with 3 women, the queen, his first love, Anisha, and his second fling, Alice. Alice is basically the queen's puppet, but Anisha stayed neutral, making her the outcast of the royal drama. Barris and Winley are Anisha's kids, making them Davy's half-siblings. And while Barris acts all stiff and proper, his sister is a chaotic force of nature. Winley clapped back at her brother, telling him to stop acting like a robot, reminding him he was the one crying about wanting to see Davy earlier. While they bickered, Amy scrambled to check if Davy was still alive. Meanwhile, the protagonist recalled a rumor that these twins used to lead a bandit gang. Watching their chaotic energy now, yeah, he believed it. Still their family, and they hang on his every word. For a guy in Davy's position, that's an asset he can't ignore. They sat down to catch up, and realized it's been 6 long years. The twins got shipped off to the middle of nowhere, right after Davy fell into his coma. They were only 8 years old back then, powerless to do anything but follow orders. On top of that, their mom had sent their big sister Dana to a foreign kingdom, all thanks to the queen's toxic schemes. Anisha couldn't protect her other 2 kids, and even though nobody else knows, the queen has eyes everywhere, keeping the king's lovers constantly on her radar. But let's snap back to the twins' conversation. The twins drop a bombshell. They actually saw their dad. David immediately asks, "How's the big guy doing?" Barris admits that while the king looks totally drained, he's hanging in there. Then it hits Willie hard. David hasn't even had the chance to meet his own father yet. That realization floors her. Anyway, shifting gears, Barris mentions that on the way over, he noticed something off. The palace looked straight up neglected. David explains that some shady staff members had been skimming cash, but he's already handled the situation, so things will be bouncing back soon. Barris isn't hearing it though. The idea that people looted the place while his brother was in a coma makes his blood boil. He's ready to storm the king's office and demand justice, but the main character shuts that down immediately. "Chill, it's handled," he insists. He's got this under control, and he isn't about to bug the king with petty drama. Looking around at the growing squad of people ready to ride for him, the protagonist has a pinch-me moment. Is this real life, or is he just dreaming? Shaking off the doubt, he pivots to Willie's insane magic skills. He's gotta know. Are they secretly part of a performance troupe? Willie laughs, claiming her twin would be a total wreck without her, since he charges around like a headless chicken with 0 coordination. She claims guys like him have absolutely no business being anywhere near a fencing tournament. That comment hits a nerve and Barris snaps. Just like that, the twins are bickering again right in front of their brother. Once the dust settles, Willie hands the protagonist a letter. It's an invite to a major fencing competition that only goes down once every 5 years. It's kicking off soon. This time, the showdown is happening in the Kingdom of Polisty. Reading the details, the main character realizes this is the real deal, high stakes. Barris hypes it up, telling David he needs to seize this chance to leave the kingdom since he's been stuck here his whole life. Barris even claims he asked Dad about it, but Willie cuts him off. She's the one who pulled the strings, getting David personal clearance from the king himself. Plus, Willie raves about Polisty being the city of water, so the views are going to be aesthetic goals. Then she drops the bomb. She's tagging along, and she won't take no for an answer. Faced with this, the protagonist realizes he can't say no to his siblings' puppy dog eyes. He agrees to roll with them. David starts thinking. He's never actually stepped foot in a foreign kingdom. Catching a vibe at a huge event like this might not be so bad. A little fun is exactly what he needs right now. He's actually getting hyped. Meanwhile, over in the royal hall, Bespies remarks that Barris is turning 14, soon basically a grown man. He figures the princes are probably obsessing over the fencing tournament right now, but he tells the king to chill, because the young master has leveled up. Besbis praises David's icy calm and sharp instincts, genuinely shocked by how much the prince has evolved. Hearing this, the king murmurs that if even the chamberlain notices, that's enough. He calls the whole situation heartbreaking, Cut back to David. He's staring at his mother's portrait, totally captivated. Not just because of her, but because his room is finally clean. It doesn't look like a haunted house anymore. Thanks to Bespis, the new staff speedran the cleanup, and the palace is finally looking like royalty actually lives there. It's not just David. Amy is vibing with the new aesthetic too. She thinks, it's awesome that things are finally getting back on track. But David can't get too comfy in his upgraded room. He's got a trip to catch. Amy confirms she's packed all the prince's gear. Then she hands over a special bottle to his care before he links up with the twins to head for Polisti. The Continental Fencing Tournament has always been the main event, grabbing everyone's attention and holding massive clout. With Barris entering the ring, David got the green light to join, hoping his brother brings home the win, which would totally shake up Carlos's status. But there's a mystery. David still can't figure out why the queen signed off on Barris competing. Does she think he's gonna flop? Or is she plotting something sketchy that David needs to watch out for? Before they roll out, the king makes a public appearance to bless the trip. The crowd goes wild when they see him because Creonis Al Rune is the beloved ruler. But to David, he just sees his alleged father. This is the first time he's laid eyes on the man since waking up. Considering the king has been ghosting his own son for 6 months, the king turns to Barris and asks if he's ready. The kid doesn't hesitate. He says yes, promising to do the kingdom proud. With the formalities wrapped up, the king wished Barris a safe return, totally ignoring the rest of the squad. He literally turned his back on them cold. But before bouncing, he dropped a quick line to David, saying it was good to see him healthy. Winley immediately checked on her brother, but inside, David was unbothered. He wasn't about to waste a single ounce of emotional energy on the king. Suddenly, a royal messenger announced that because Prince Barris was the star of this tournament, the usual curfew was cancelled. VIP treatment, baby. David, meanwhile, was analyzing the monarch. The king had changed. Gone was the swagger, and that heroic aura he used to flex. Now, he just looked like a disheveled burnout old man, completely drained by life. Anyway, the main crew hit the road. While the wheels turned, Barris caught his brother looking bored out of his mind and asked what was wrong. David shrugged it off. He just wasn't built for these long-haul road trips. That's when Winley whipped out the wine David had packed, suggesting they turn up a little to kill the boredom. She mentioned she'd never smelled a vintage this fragrant, and asked for the backstory. David revealed it was part of the stash their late mother left behind, though he still didn't know why she saved it. Hearing this, Barris got nervous, asking if they should really be chugging something that precious. David's logic: no better time than the present. They were celebrating after all. Winley noted that David's vibe had totally shifted. He used to hoard everything mom left like a dragon with gold. But David just brushed it off, saying wine is meant for drinking, not collecting dust. He raised a glass to their happiness. Hours later, they set up camp for the night. Barris announced they'd roll out at dawn, estimating another day, before they reached the destination. He also mentioned he managed to keep Winley chill for now, probably because the wine knocked her out cold. Barris reminisced, recalling that David used to talk about going camping, and look at them now, living the dream. He also admitted he rushed the departure ceremony to save his brother's energy. But honestly, David was thinking they should have just taken horses. This slow-motion carriage ride was testing his patience. It gave him too much time to think about how much had changed, and he couldn't help wondering what else was different in this world. While Barris crashed for the night, Amy checked on the prince, asking if he needed some shut-eye. David refused. The moon was hitting different tonight, way more beautiful. Plus, he could feel the mana surging in the air and wanted to farm as much magic as possible. Later that night, some chatter broke out about the moons. The red one is Sirius, the blue one is Creus. Legend has it Sirius sparks the beginning while Creus illuminates the end. Heavy stuff. Hidden in the shadows, our protagonist complimented the guard's knowledge. The guard, thinking it was just banter, replied that it's basic knowledge, even a kid knows that lore. He added that he'd much rather be discussing this with a lady. Right then, another guard walked up, confused, asking who he was talking to. The first guy froze, realizing he was the only one standing there. Was he chatting with a ghost? David stifled a laugh from the darkness, realizing he was the ghost. He had cloaked himself with invisibility to scout the perimeter, clocking 4 elite swordsmen among the ranks. He figured if things went sideways, these guys could handle some heat, like say an ambush by 20 enemies in the dead of night. David spotted the ninjas lurking in the distance. They had clearly waited for everyone to doze off. Definitely the queen's doing. This was the perfect setup to delete David and silence the opposition permanently. David wanted to stay low-key to avoid raising suspicion, but he couldn't just let his squad get wiped. Besides, witnesses who see his true power usually don't live long enough to tweet about it. Even without a real weapon, the prince was ready to throw hands. He remembered his old master's lesson: literally anything is a weapon if you're skilled enough. 2. David, the battlefield has no rules. A weapon is just an extension of the self. Heck, with enough creativity, a scrap of cloth could be as deadly as a legendary sword. Grabbing a simple stick, he stepped into the fray, ready to humble these assassins. Seeing their skills were, let's be real, trash, the MC got curious. Did the queen send you clowns? Dead silence. Davy shrugged. All right, play the silent type. Feel free to get lost then. But the queen's lapdogs don't just heal. They lunged, clash, while parrying blades. Davy analyzed the board. What's the endgame here? Wiping out 3 royals. That's a political nuke. Even Inez would feel the fallout. Unless she's playing 4D chess. Back to reality. Davy smacked down a wave of enemies. You guys gonna run, or what? He offered a mercy rule. Scram. And tell Her Highness Prince Davy is gonna wreck her stuff. Just for the LOLs. Sensing his overwhelming aura, the assassins decided to bail. Seek. You think he'd let them walk? He chased the ninjas down. Too slow. He didn't just catch them. He deleted them. Escaping my range. Not likely. With the trash taken out, Davy roasted their performance. Isn't patience a ninja's whole thing? You guys skipped class that day. Classic rookie mistake. Suddenly, a second squad popped out of the shadows. Ambush. But Davy just sighed. Useless. He sensed one runner bolting while the rest stayed behind as meat shields. To buy time. After sweeping the distractions, Davy scoffed. Not even worth the calories. Plot twist. He'd rigged the battlefield before they even showed up. Unless you're across the ocean, nobody ghosts me. He fired a long-range nuke at the runner. A formless magic technique. Odorless invisible, that slammed into the target and instantly erased his soul. A bit overkill, maybe. But his masters taught him always clean your plate. Finish the job. And rule number 1, 0 mercy for anyone threatening his life. So a perfect traceless elimination was the only fitting ending. Best part, no witnesses, no crime scene, smooth criminal. Later on, the queen got the bad news. Shirley reported in. The life candles linked to my students. They're all out. The queen realized her hit squad was wiped. And the targets, did we get them? Shirley hesitated. They just arrived in the Palestine Kingdom. The queen saw red. Excuse me, you couldn't handle 3 kids and 5 guards. Some Dark Moon Guild. You guys are a joke. Not only did they fail, but they lost 20 elites. Shirley stammered. We're investigating, but it looks like Prince Davy had backup. The queen scoffed. Backup? Who helps a loser like that? She ordered Shirley to dig deeper. I want to show this mystery helper exactly what happens when you cross me. She leaned in, reminding her. Lackey, I only hired your little club because you promised 100% success rate. Screw up again and the contract is void. And I'll use my crown to crush your guild into dust. Meanwhile, Willie spotted the Palestine Kingdom. Guys, look. Davy breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, the Water Kingdom, a tiny city-state, but packed with some of the continent's most gorgeous ancient ruins. Touchdown. The crew soaked in the view. His brother caught Davy smiling. You look happy. Davy nodded. Well, this is the holy land of swordsmanship. They spotted the massive stadium, usually an arena for death matches. Gladiators and monsters fighting for survival. Willie dropped some info. 8 fighters per country. The squad realized the vibe immediately. It's just a massive flex of national pride. And with the under 20 age limit, it's basically a rookie showcase, not the pro leagues. Willie added, one more thing. Round seriously sent a total incompetence package to represent them. Barris asks if she should maybe try hyping him up, instead of straight up flaming the guy. Meanwhile, Davy's scanning stats, Barris is rocking solid intermediate skills, ranking just shy of a swordmaster. Honestly, pretty cracked for a kid his age. But then the vibe shifts. Winley drops the bomb. Palan's champion is the legendary sword princess. Davy's completely out of the loop on this one, realizing just how much the meta shifted during his 6-year nap. Still, the name Elena de Palin rings a bell. She's the solo princess in the Palin royal lineup, surrounded by 9 princes. But she's the crown prince's absolute favorite. Barris chimes in, noting her clout isn't just about raw talent. She's wielding a literal cheat code, the divine sword. Winley breaks it down. The blade is named Caldera's. The sword god's personal favorite, a masterpiece forged over 1,000 days. Davy pauses. It's been a hot minute since he heard that name drop. Ares the sword god. Yeah, that was literally his mentor back in the hall. Guy was lazy as hell but absolutely OP. Constantly flexing that sword of his, and leaving his signature wherever he went. Still hearing it now gives Davy a weird feeling. Right on cue. A girl breezes past him. Something resonates. When asked why she paused, she brushes it off like it's nothing. Cut to later, Davy's dissecting sword lore, with the siblings recalling the specs. It houses a spirit born from the creator's love for the world. They don't slap the divine label on it for no reason, which begs the question, why did it choose Elena? As its new host after hundreds of years of silence, Barris throws in another factoid about Elena's hype. She's ranked as one of the continent's top 5 beauties. Davy rolls his eyes, pretty sure the sword doesn't care about looks when choosing a master. Post-dinner, he gears up in a suit Amy prepped. He asks if there's anything less extra, but the maid claps back. This is the basic option, because even if he's sitting out the tournament, he's still royalty. Gotta look the part. Festival night hits. The twins are dripped out. Davy hypes up his sister's look, but Barris warns him not to gas her up too much or she'll actually believe it. That comment earns him a swift stomp on the foot. Winley drags the protagonist to the dance floor, demanding a partner. Nearby, another princess hits the floor. She's visibly over the noise and chaos. Her partner suggests chilling out, reminding her this event is for the new gen to network. Just enjoy the vibe. Then he pivots. How was her last trip? To the village. The princess smirks. Not bad. For such a barbaric backwater. Before the main showdown, there's this banquet designed for noble schmoozing. But our boy Davy, he's only laser-focused on the tournament, and uses the party to scout the competition. Notices the crowd is super young since the bracket is capped at anyone under 20. Still, there are chaperones like him around. But Barris, dude is the main character right now. Totally unintentional, but he's got a whole squad of girls orbiting him. Davy figures it's the sword skills attracting the fans. Either way, it's wild seeing Barris actually socializing. And it's not just him. Winley is turning heads left and right too. Davy keeps his distance though. He's in full analysis mode, scanning for threats. Barris sends an SOS signal with his eyes trying to bail on the attention. But when he looks for backup, his siblings have already ditched him for the dance floor. Davy wants his brother to actually enjoy his youth and not crash the vibe. Winley laughs, saying she never pictured Davy dancing with her. She points out that he unknowingly just stepped into the social hierarchy game. Still, she's low-key salty. If it wasn't for Davy's situation, he could be dominating this tournament too. I mean, the guy has serious blade talent. Davy brushes it off. Claims she's exaggerating skill is one thing, but hitting expert level, nah. However, Winley pushes back. Talent is just an illusion. Without the grind, natural gifts are worthless. Davy shrugs it off. He's not chasing clout. He just wants that quiet life. Hearing this, Winley tells him he sounds like a total boomer, but mid-roast a shadow looms over them, claiming this is the perfect spot to finally meet Princess Winley. Davy's head snaps up, sizing the guy up. Who is this creep? And more importantly, how does he know Winley? Winley, yeah, she looked like she wanted to be literally anywhere else right now. But this guy, he straight up shoved Davy aside, sliding in to ask Winley for the honor of a private chat. Creep behavior. Winley wasn't having it. She name-dropped him Prince Valentian, but hit him with the "I'm busy talking to my brother so take a hike" vibe. You could see the vein pop in Valentian's forehead. Rejection isn't his thing. He puffed up his chest formally, introducing himself as Valentian du Voltis, the seventh prince of the Voltis kingdom. Davy kept it chill, introducing himself simply as Davy Al Roun. Valentian tried to keep yapping, but Davy cut in, clarifying he was just there as a +1 for his siblings. Low-profile mode active. With a dismissive, "have a nice stay," Valentian immediately swiveled back to Princess Winley, acting like Davy didn't even exist. Then he dropped the cheesiest line ever, claiming he'd crush the tournament just to honor her beauty. He told her to keep her eyes glued to the arena. Winley wasn't swooning. She called him out straight up. Disrespecting the other fighters isn't a good look, declaring victory before the first round tacky. But Valentian shrugged, claiming it's not arrogance if it's the truth. That ticked her off. She clapped back, mentioning her twin brother was in the bracket. Valentian's smirk just proved how much he was, sleeping on the competition. Done with the conversation, she grabbed Davy and turned to walk away. Queen move. Davy smirked. His sister could hold her own, but he knew this entitled prince wasn't the type to take no for an answer. And right on cue, Valentian surged forward, snatching Winley's arm to stop her. Big mistake. Davy's patience meter just hit 0. He'd played nice long enough with this clown. In a blur, Davy unbalanced the prince, twisting him up and disarming him before Valentian's brain could even process the movement. Davy's voice went ice cold. "Don't touch my sister like that." He leaned in, adding that Valentian should be grateful nothing snapped, meaning he could still walk into the arena tomorrow. That didn't de-escalate things. Valentian turned 50 shades of red, absolute rage taking over. He ripped off a glove and hurled it at Davy's face, the classic duel challenge. Winley tried to step in, panic rising. She told the prince he was way out of line. Valentian didn't care, screaming about his honor as a knight. Suddenly, a new voice cut through the tension. That's a lot of noise for someone preaching about honor. It was the princess from earlier, the heavy hitter. She'd been watching the whole clown show. She tilted her head, asking if he really thought he could recover dignity he never had to begin with. Ouch. The second Davy locked eyes with her, a jolt of recognition hit him. She looked insanely familiar. He was stunned. She was the spitting image of Ares the sword god, the ancient hero who built the Feline Empire. We're talking about the empire that grew into one of the continent's big 3 superpowers. Everyone knows the lore. Ares was the OG wielder of the holy sword Caldras. He also created the lost claymore sword style. Legends say masters of that style could literally summon tsunamis with a single swing. Davy always thought that was a bit of a stretch though, even for a god-tier hero. Anyway, back to reality, this girl is a carbon copy of Ares. But this is Princess Ileana of the Fallen Empire, the Emperor's pride and joy. Still, Davy couldn't shake the resemblance to the sword hero. I mean, Ares was a pretty boy, sure, but he was definitely a dude. Unless there's some wild gender-bending magic involved, this shouldn't be possible. While Davy was deep in this mental spiral, Ileana walked right up to him. "What did you just say?" Davy snapped out of it, apologizing instantly. He blamed it on thinking out loud and being totally wrong, trying to sweep the awkwardness under the rug. While Ileana turned her attention to grilling Valentian, Davy took a moment to appreciate her. She had a seriously commanding presence. Unlike Valentian, Davy looked at the prince and thought, not only is this guy ugly, he has zero charisma. Meanwhile, Ileana laid down the law: if Valentian wants to claim honor, he needs to apologize. Judging by the twisted look on the prince's face, yeah, that apology isn't happening. Davy knew the type. Egos that big don't deflate easily. Fine, Davy stepped up. "I accept the duel." Ileana blinked, asking if he was actually serious. She called it a pointless brawl and told him to walk away. But Davy shook his head. "It's my call." If Valentian still wanted smoke, Davy was ready to bring the fire right now. He grabbed a wooden training sword, testing the weight. It had been a minute since he'd swung one of these. Barrist used to. He closes the distance, dropping a harsh reality check on our main character. You might have raw strength, but your opponent is a tournament-hardened vet. And trust me, Davy knows the score. Spotting the sheer panic on his siblings' faces, Davy tries to chill them out. But his opponent, he seizes that moment to throw some serious shade. He sneers, telling Davy that if he's just gonna swing that blade like a total noob, he should tap out now and save his family the heartbreak. He keeps pushing, claiming that if Davy admits defeat and begs on his knees right now, he might consider showing mercy. That sets Barris off. Barris steps up to defend his brother, but Davy holds him back coolly, stating that actions speak louder than trash talk. Hearing that, Valentine doubles down. He swears he won't lose. In fact, since there's zero chance of Davy winning in a setup like this, Valentine vows he would be the one kneeling and admitting inferiority. Davy takes that bet instantly, clapping back, "Just don't wimp out when you lose." Davy starts mental gaming the fight. He knows perception is key to the crowd. He's just some fragile prince, a weakling who barely clawed his way back from a coma. He can't go dropping his true power level in a simple scuffle like this. It's overkill. With the stakes set, the duel begins, but Valentine misreads the situation completely, thinking our MC is frozen in fear because Davy didn't make the first move. Hearing that taunt gives the protagonist a wicked idea. He suddenly charges full tilt at his opponent, leaving Valentine totally shook by the blitz. But instead of slashing, Davy intentionally faceplants, smashing the ground. He feigns a clumsy slip, accidentally launching his sword from his grip. But get this, the flying blade smacks right into his opponent's face. Valentine eats a solid steel sandwich while Davy acts like it was just a butterfingered mistake. Spoiler alert, it was all calculated. He dropped his enemy without leaking a drop of his true aura. And Valentine, he's beyond humiliated. Because getting wrecked by a clumsy accident hurts the ego way more than a real attack. And the bystanders, they're buying the act too instantly, whispering about how embarrassing that takedown was. Rage mode activated. Valentine scrambles up, eyes bloodshot, wanting to delete his opponent from existence. But Davy just shrugs, roasting him. He says Valentine needs to hit the gym because those pathetic skills couldn't eliminate a fly. Valentine swings wild, doing everything possible to draw blood. But here's the kicker, he can't land a single hit. Davy isn't even trying. He's on autopilot. Realizing he's getting toyed with, Valentine starts spiraling into desperation. He can't process why he's getting owned so hard. In the middle of a frustrated lunge, he gets floored again. The crowd watches him hit the dirt. Losing is bad enough, but now he has to tank the mockery, not just from the MC, but from every single spectator who just watched him take an L multiple times in a row. Triggered beyond belief, he screams at the crowd to shut their mouths, declaring he's done listening to their garbage. Meanwhile, Davy observes the wreckage. His adversary hasn't just been beaten, he's been publicly destroyed. And by who? The very prince everyone wrote off as a weakling. See, our protagonist knew his swordplay was god tier, thanks to the drunken stance. Just like the name implies. This fighting style is all about gaslighting the opponent, pretending you have no clue what you're doing, stumbling around like you're wasted. This technique was cooked up by Doc Gojun, the ultimate drinker in the Hall of Heroes in Teher, who was obsessed with crafting. The most twisted, disrespectful sword style in history. Davy knows the lore, because he actually met the guy. Back during his spirit training days, Doc Gojun used to brag about inventing it, but even he knew how toxic that fighting style actually was. Davy was always told to only unleash that kind of disrespect on someone who truly deserved it. So the MC knew from day one that even the creators considered this technique a major taboo. Not because it was too lethal or sharp, but because of the sheer level of manipulation and psychological damage it inflicts. Bottom line, this style wasn't built for self-defense or clean kills. It was built to humiliate, to completely clown an opponent in front of an audience. It targets the enemy's openings, mid-attack landing critical hits while looking incompetent. It turns the adversary into a panicked mouse. trapped in a maze. And the more people watching, the deeper the psychological scar for the victim, which is exactly what's going down right now. After toying with him for so long, Davy starts wondering if he just has insane luck, or if Valentine is just trashed here. Either way, he's finding this trolling strategy immensely satisfying. It fits his vibe perfectly. Davy decides this is the ultimate style for anyone who wants to actually have a blast while fighting. Unlike him though, his opponent is definitely not laughing. Consumed by rage, Valentine flares his powers, fully intending to wipe Davy off the face of the earth. He roars. Everyone started asking if Valentine had lost his mind, using his powers in a simple, friendly match. But our protagonist gave him zero options. David had completely backed his opponent into a corner. David realized something crucial. If he survived this attack, he couldn't use dumb luck as an excuse anymore. He could feel the pressure. He knew every single eye had been glued to him since the duel started. Valentine snapped. He saw an opening and charged at the protagonist with zero chill, aiming for the kill. But he swung at air. David sidestepped the attack effortlessly, leaving the prince totally shocked. It wasn't just a dodge. David used the momentum to flip the script, unbalancing Valentine and sending him face-planting into the dirt. In that split second, the arrogant prince realized he was completely outclassed. But David wasn't done acting yet. He immediately tried to downplay it for the crowd, pretending he just tripped over his own feet and accidentally disarmed his opponent. The crowd wasn't buying the prince's hype anymore, looking at Valentine with pure disgust. That cemented the victory for David. But immediately, the rumor mill started spinning out of control. People whispered, was Valentine always this pathetic? And is Prince David really the same guy who was in a coma last week? David kept up the charade, claiming he could barely hold his sword, and his balance was trash. He insisted it was just a clumsy accident, and Lady Luck was on his side. Hearing this, Willie quipped that his brother must have burned through a lifetime of luck in one day. But while some saw a spectacle, Ileana saw a waste of time. She thought the whole display was stupid. She turned on her heel and dipped. David clocked her exit. That princess is ice cold. Later, the sibling lecture started. David got grilled for being irresponsible and causing a massive scene. David defended himself, basically saying, "Hey, we won, right? Why stress about the details?" Benitez wasn't having it. He argued David got lucky because his opponent is a loose cannon with an explosive temper. That fight could have turned fatal instantly. The twins had seen Valentine's skills up close before. They knew exactly what kind of damage he could do. And remember, Valentine had even stalked Willie before. Even if he backs off now, the guy is dangerous. Benitez warned David not to push his luck again. You can't rely on miracles forever. In response, David just grabbed his brother's hand and squeezed. Hard. It was a silent flex of strength. He told Benitez to stop treating him like a fragile patient. He promised to stay out of trouble, but internally, David knew the secret was leaking out anyway. Might as well stop hiding it eventually. Willie just felt relieved knowing David wasn't helpless anymore. David had caught his opponent slipping, while Valentine struggled with the weight of his own sword. Honestly, even David was surprised by how hard the prince crashed and burned. Speaking of the loser, Valentine was absolutely losing it. He was smashing everything in his room to vent his rage. Servants were trembling while he screamed about being the future ruler of the Baldi era. He refused to be a laughingstock in front of the other nobles. His ego couldn't handle it. He was obsessed with maintaining the image of a radiant, talented genius. He was used to getting whatever he wanted. That's exactly why he targeted Princess Wendy. He chose her as his future wife, not just for her looks, but because her brother is a skilled swordsman. Through marriage, he'd turn that swordsman into a loyal subordinate. It was all a power play. He even had a deal set up with Queen Roan. The blueprint for success was perfect. But now, this random obstacle appeared and flushed his credibility down the toilet. Valentine's fury peaked. As he pulverized another piece of furniture, a dark thought took over. He felt an overwhelming desire to wipe David off the face of the map for this humiliation. Suddenly, a voice echoed in the room. "Is that what you really want?" Valentine froze, startled by the invisible intruder. "Who's talking?" he demanded. A shadowy female presence manifested, telling the prince she could make his wish come true. Still confused, the prince asked who she was. The woman stepped closer and whispered, "I'm Shario." He had to put all his chips on her. That was the only way to unlock his true desire. Fast forward a bit, and the big tournament day finally dropped. Amy gave David the heads up his brother was about to step into the ring. David looked hyped, but honestly, it wasn't about the brawl itself. He mumbled something about having a long road ahead before he was satisfied. The maid tilted her head, totally confused by his cryptic vibe. David brushed it off, claiming he was just thinking out loud. "Let's bounce," he said. "Everything else could wait." Meanwhile, Benitez was already locked in down on the field. Winley watched from the VIP section, but she wasn't alone. The whole arena was buzzing with electric anticipation. But here's the twist. Benitez's opponent was none other than Valentine. And after their last messy encounter, Valentine wasn't planning on taking another loss. Just then, our main character rolled up to the scene. David soaked in the roar of the crowd. The energy in the stadium, absolutely insane. He was low-key grateful Benedis got the afternoon slot. David had zero interest in the morning preliminaries, mostly because he'd been feeling physically wrecked. When he linked up with Winley, she immediately checked his vibe, asking if her brother was okay. David kept his health stats to himself. The truth, he'd mastered his mana circle way too young, giving him god-tier power to crush stronger enemies. But there was a glitch. His physical transformation wasn't 100% complete. Sometimes burning too much mana gave him nasty backlash, like severe indigestion. He realized if this kept up, he'd have to waste holy power just to cure a stomachache. Suddenly, Benedis marched into the arena. The crowd went wild. That's when the MC realized his brother actually had some serious clout. Until that moment, he had no clue who Benedis was fighting. But the second he saw Valentin step onto the field, the irony hit him like a truck. The same guy fighting two heavy hitters from the Ron family. He figured a rematch like this would have happened way later in the plot. Before the bell rang, the ref dropped the rules, blunt blades only. No mana-infused strikes allowed. Basically, don't kill each other. Glancing at his brother, David muttered. That public opinion was savage. Winley was stressing over her twin, terrified he'd get hurt if he went full send. But the MC shut that down. Chill, he told her. Benedis isn't a rookie. He knows what he's doing. He was convinced nothing tragic was about to go down. Down in the pit, the ref signaled the fighters to close the distance. Mages fired up a protective barrier around the ring. Valentin stood there, silent as a grave, laser-focused. And it wasn't just him. Benedis wasn't playing games either. The ref screamed, "Start," and both fighters launched forward like bullets. Based on his previous duel with Valentin, the protagonist knew this guy was wild and unpredictable with a blade. Benedis, on the other hand, was all about that raw power meta. Comparing their builds, David figured his brother had the winning odds. David bet that Valentin wouldn't be able to tank Benedis' heavy smash attacks. But then the impossible happened. Valentin didn't dodge the incoming strike. He chose to tank the hit head-on, shattering everyone's expectations. The crowd gasped, realizing this fight was about to be way spicier than they thought. Meanwhile, David frowned. Valentin didn't fight like this before. You don't just level up that hard overnight. It's physically impossible. Even a prodigy needs time to grind and master those mechanics. Still, David figured if Benedis kept spamming attacks sooner or later, Valentin's stamina bar would hit zero. But even trying to stay logical, the protagonist couldn't shake this bad feeling. Winley felt it too, noting she'd never seen Benedis move with that kind of speed. She realized if her brother leveled up this much, she needed to step up her game too. David clocked the improvement immediately. Since he was a kid, Benedis dreamed of the nightlife. 6 years later, the evolution was undeniable. The man had put in the work. But the enemy, total mystery. Watching Valentin move, David realized this felt wrong, like he was fighting a completely different person. He knew this vibe. It was the calm before a disaster. Seeing David tense up, Winley asked if he was okay. Back in the arena, Benedis was trying to read his opponent. He didn't expect Valentin to counter his longsword like that. He had to respect the guy's durability. Despite the weird movements, Benedis knew he couldn't lower his guard. Instead of playing defense, he decided to end it right now. He charged up his ultimate strike, but as he unleashed the attack, Valentin just stood there, frozen, waiting for the blade to smash into his face. Benitez was totally baffled by his rival's weird behavior. Still, he jerked his weapon away at the very last second. No way he could risk injuring the guy and getting disqualified by the judges, so he reset for another go, trying to land a hit without drawing blood. But Psyche, that was exactly what Valentin wanted. Before Benitez could even blink, Valentin channeled a surge of magic into his sword. He knew it was illegal, but he didn't care. He was swinging to kill. Flashback to last night, Benitez was training like a beast, terrified of losing. Then David walked in on his brother, whining that the noise was keeping him up. David noted that Willie was already out cold and asked why Benitez wasn't catching some Z's too. His brother replied that he was too wired to sleep, hence the late-night grind. Benitez also opened up, admitting he was feeling shaky about the match, though he still hyped himself up. Davey hyped his little brother up, promising him the absolute win, and telling him to chill. There was zero reason to stress. Peeping Benitez's internal energy flow, Davey clocked that his brother's mana was incredibly soft, like gentle vibes only. He toyed with the idea of slipping his bro a secret power-up, even though getting caught would be a massive scandal. But Davey was down to risk it all. He told Benitez to pump the brakes, claiming the kid looked way too tense and offered to rub out those knots in his shoulders. But that massage was just a cover. Davey used the physical contact to low-key transfer some of his own overpowered energy into the boy. He dropped a quick warning that it might sting a bit. Instantly, Benitez felt like his whole nervous system just got tased. Davey gaslighted him immediately, claiming the shock was just because Benitez had pulled an all-nighter instead of catching some Z's. He lectured him about getting more rest while internally mapping out the technique. This wasn't just a rubdown. It was a chain reaction designed to force-feed mana through the recipient's circuits, expanding their capacity. It looked simple on the surface, but Davey knew this was high-level wizardry. You needed a master practitioner to pull this off without frying someone's brain. In fact, this specific mana-boosting hack was banned in almost every civilized kingdom. Come to think of it, Davy recalled one sketchy spot where this technique wasn't illegal, and they actually gave killer massages there too. Wrapping up the procedure, Davy muttered a cryptic magic trigger word. Benetas, totally confused, asked what language that was. Davy ghosted the question completely. By the time he stepped back, his brother was floored, literally. His body couldn't handle the sudden mana spike. Davy figured this wouldn't be an instant win button for the upcoming duel, but it would definitely fast-track his brother's evolution. Still, he couldn't just let Benetas nap on the floor. That would look bad even if it was safer. Benetas groaned, whining that he was getting treated like a rag doll. He claimed that if this were Winley, Davy would be giving her a piggyback ride right now. Jealous much. Davy denied the favoritism but hit him with an ultimatum. Go to sleep right now or get ready for massage round 2, the pain edition. Benetas didn't need to be told twice. He sprinted to his room. Satisfied his brother was buffed and safe, Davy called it a night. Flash forward to the arena. The second Valentian's magic slammed into Benetas. That secret shield Davy installed kicked into high gear. Absolute defense. It deflected Valentian's blade instantly, stopping the attacker dead in his tracks before he could slice Benetas open. The crowd gasped. Valentian's sword was clearly rigged with dark magic, but they also clocked that glowing mana shield protecting the kid. Up in the VIP box, Winley was cheering her head off for her brother's clutch defense, but when she turned to high-five Davy, his seat was empty. Down in the ring, despite the shield, Benetas had still taken some damage. The mages shut that match down instantly, dragging Valentian away. He wasn't just disqualified, he was in deep trouble. The organizers announced that his dirty tactics were a massive violation. This wasn't just a foul, it was grounds for an international war. They fired off an urgent message to the nation of Voltus immediately. Valentian's servant tried to talk them down, begging his prince to say something to fix this mess. Instead, Valentian snapped. He grabbed the loyal servant by the throat, and flexing his insane strength ended the poor guy's life, right in front of the horrified audience. The entire stadium went dead silent in pure shock. Nobody expects to see a royal publicly execute his own staff. Everyone assumed Valentian had completely lost his marbles. And honestly, they weren't wrong. Ever since his run-in with Sherio, the guy had been unhinged. Valentian was broken. As panic erupted in the stands, spectators started scrambling for the exits. The prince had gone full psycho and looked ready to rampage. Security knew they had to act, but restraining a mana-crazed lunatic isn't exactly a walk in the park. That's when our MC stepped up. Davy walked right up to his little brother, telling him the match was over. He assured him he did an incredible job. Benetas stammered something about creating a mana barrier, and Davy smirked with pride. He knew a mana barrier was top-tier magic, ultimate protection for the caster. Sure, Davy had layered a safeguard on him, but the main reason Benetas survived, that was all him. It was his own growth that saved his life. The kid is only 14, but he just pulled off a move that would make a veteran jealous. Despite being young, his potential is through the roof. Davy expected the boy to cry or complain about the pain, but Benetas toughed it out. Davy told him he'd done enough, it was time to rest and recover. As medics carried Benetas out on a stretcher, a new crisis was brewing on the other side of the arena. Valentine was unleashing absolute hell, a catastrophe only our main character could fix. A few mages tried to contain the Berserk Prince, but their magic attacks bounced off like nothing. Valentine's mind and body were clearly glitching out. Worse, his power level was spiking way beyond what the mages could handle. Desperate, they started evacuating civilians while the barrier still held. But right at that moment, the protagonist blitzed into the arena, totally shocking the mages already on the scene. They screamed at Davy to stay back, warning him this boss fight was too high level. Even Winley, spotting the MC in the danger zone, panicked. She hadn't even seen him move to get there. Ignoring the warnings, the protagonist stepped up. He clocked that Valentine was infected with something nasty, and noted that the enemy had fully hijacked the prince's system. Time to calculate a winning strategy. Valentine's rage meter maxed out when he saw Davy. He charged straight for the MC while mages tried to intercept, but they couldn't hold back the crazed juggernaut. Valentine had a clear shot right at Davy until Winley suddenly rushed the field, terrified for her brother. The protagonist was stunned. This was definitely not part of the script. The last thing he wanted was his little sister in the crossfire. But Winley wasn't the only arrival. Ileana dropped in seconds later, shoving the protagonist away from the threat. Davy didn't see that coming. Until that second, Ileana had been invisible. She literally spawned out of thin air. And she didn't come to chat, she was there to delete the enemy. Valentine wasn't thinking, just running on killer instinct, but Ileana was surgical. She unleashed an ult called the Great Mountain Splitter, a strike so heavy it sent the enemy flying across the map. Davy was genuinely impressed. It was his first time seeing Ileana go all out. After landing the hit, Ileana thought it was game over, but she froze when Valentine stood back up. That attack should have finished him. Valentine wasn't even crit damaged. In fact, he looked even more bloodthirsty than before. Before he could counter, Ileana relaunched her assault, striking him from every angle, trying to shut him down permanently. She spammed sword strikes and melee combos, taking advantage of his durability to unload everything. Ileana wasn't holding back a single ounce of stamina. The crowd watched in stunned silence. Ileana thought she'd finally secured the win. Valentine looked down for the count, so she signaled the guards to cuff him for his crimes. Winley tried dragging Davy away, begging him to let Ileana handle the cleanup. Meanwhile, Davy was admiring Ileana's drive, realizing she was tiers above your average sword swinger. But then Ileana spotted a red flag and screamed that Valentine was a vampire. Davy was confused, but Ileana lunged at the enemy. Even while restrained, Valentine moved, tearing into his own flesh. Davy watched the enemy's bizarre move from a distance, but he instantly realized the setup. Ileana tried to interrupt the cast, but she was a split second too slow. Valentine summoned a tidal wave of blood, and anyone standing too close was instantly wiped out. In the middle of the crimson mist, Davy shielded his sister. Winley was fading fast, but she ignored her own health to check on Davy. Trying to keep her calm, Davy promised everything was cool. He stood up and told her to take a nap, assuring her she'd wake up thinking this was all just a nightmare. The moment he put his sister into a magical sleep, Davy knew it was showtime. If he didn't act, now that necro energy in the air would spiral out of control. He was the only one who got the mechanics here. He believed that when you sync up with your own mana, the powers start developing their own attitudes. But he was juggling 3 different powers, and they all had different vibes. The necromancy mana was basically a psychopath, super effective for killing. On the flip side, his regular mana was a total tsundere. Hard to work with at first, but once you earn its trust, it follows your lead. And then there was the most stubborn one, holy power. That power refused to listen to anyone and was incredibly lazy. Unless there was a massive disaster, divine power was a no-show, but the shockwave, that was real enough. Amid the chaos, Davy snagged the Radiant Blessing, a 4th-level holy spell. With Winley safe for the moment, he finally had the bandwidth to think. He realized the enemy had triggered the Blood Tide, a nasty field, draining the life essence of everything breathing nearby. The bad news, Davy didn't have the juice to save everyone in the arena right now. But he was relieved Winley had bailed, and now that the coast was clear, he could handle business without hiding his true strength. But plot twist, Ileana was awake and on her feet. That girl is a warrior to the bone. She doesn't know how to quit. This was Davy's nightmare scenario. He never expected anyone else to stay conscious inside the blood tide, except for him. But seeing Ileana de Pollen standing tall, he realized exactly why. She was chosen by the divine sword. Still, Davy's brain drifted. He couldn't help noticing how stunning Ileana looked, even when she was totally drained. He tried to check on her, but Ileana put up a wall instantly. Despite the danger, she kept him at arm's length. There's a monster on the loose, and Davy just wanted to help. Seeing her stubbornness, he told her if she could move, she needed to run. Instead, Ileana grabbed his arm, demanding to know why he wasn't on his knees in pain. Davy realized he was cornered. He expected her to get suspicious eventually, not confront him mid-crisis. So he played the fool, claiming he had zero clue why the mist wasn't affecting him. Ileana's face said it all. She wasn't buying that lame excuse. Davy thought she should just say, "Thank you for not dying." But Ileana took charge, ordering him to get out while she handled the rest. She insisted this was way above Davy's pay grade. She threw shade, saying his last win was pure luck, and luck won't save him now. To her, Davy was just another helpless prince. She believed she was the only one with the strength and intel, fully aware that the blood demons from the old texts were straight-up vampires. She told Davy he must have heard the horror stories. Luck is useless against a predator like this. Anyone without mana mastery would get shredded in seconds. It's a death sentence. Davy pointed out the enemy wasn't exactly handing out hall passes. Ileana declared she'd cover his escape. Davy noticed her confidence was high, but something was off. She was way too emotional. It wasn't just a fight. It felt like a grudge match against an archenemy. Cue the flashback to Ileana's childhood. One night she woke up, searching for her mom, but she found a horror show, her mother draining blood from a victim. Even as a kid, Ileana knew the truth. A vampire. That memory scarred her for life. Back in the present, staring down the beast, she decided every vampire still breathing needed to be erased. That was her life's mission. She was about to charge in, but Davy yanked her hair to stop her. He muttered an apology then. Ileana snapped, warning him to stay out of her way. Davy didn't get her specific beef with vamps, but he was done pretending. He dropped the act and prepped for combat. Contrary to what the princess thought, Davy was actually a vampire expert. He'd studied them extensively during his training. Honestly, he probably knew more than she did. Plus, he had hands-on experience fighting these things. He's been here before. Fighting another one felt almost boring. As he dodged effortlessly, he mumbled that this guy seemed dumber than the last one. But Davy wasn't just there to dance around. He was ready to terminate the target. He threw a punch, aimed straight at the creature's heart. a move from the celestial demon arts. The technique, demonic blood explosion. The enemy didn't just feel the hit, he got launched across the entire stadium like a ragdoll. Ileana was left completely shook. The guy she thought was weak just proved her dead wrong. The dust settles on a display of raw, unadulterated power that completely defies logic. Ileana stares brain buffering, trying to process if what the protagonist just pulled off is even physically possible. Up until this second, she was convinced David was just some monolith normie. But reality just hit her like a truck. She watched him obliterate a statue and body a vampire without breaking a sweat. That wasn't just skill. Even elite knights and high-tier mages would struggle to pull off a flex like that. It begs the question, is David really just a coma patient prince? Then he reaches a hand out toward her. She flinches pure instinct, but seeing the gesture, she assumes the prince is having a chivalrous moment to help her up. She decides to accept the vibe. But just as she reaches out, David bypasses her hand and points straight at her chest, asking for her sword. Total facepalm moment. He wasn't being a gentleman at all, and she is instantly regretting jumping to conclusions. Flustered, she stammers that her blade snapped when she tried to tank Valentine's first attack. David shakes his head. He's not talking about the scrap metal. He wants the necklace. He tells her bluntly to survive this boss fight, he needs a weapon that won't shatter. He starts trying to negotiate with the divine blade. The protagonist knows the lore. Surtur, the celestial blacksmith, spent his life crafting god-tier gear. This is the guy who forged the world-saving sword. Even broken trash becomes a legendary artifact in his hands. Surtur's reputation is continental, but his masterpieces, the famous 12 swords, are scattered like rare loot. They are national treasures, but one of them was the blacksmith's absolute favorite. Enter Caldirus, the White Guardian. It's not just one of the 12. It's built different. Caldirus is S-tier, forged specifically for the blacksmith's best friend, Hercules. The sword god poured his literal life force into this thing, giving the weapon a massive sentient ego. It makes its own choices, a fact that usually blows people's minds when they find out. But our main character isn't surprised. He actually knew Hercules back in the day. And knowing Hercules' personality, he knows this sword is going to be a total pain to handle. Right on cue, Caldera speaks up, demanding to know who this random guy is to be grabbing him. David just sighs. The weapon is acting exactly as high maintenance as he predicted. Since the sword is in its shrunken form, David throws some shade. Can you actually do anything besides scream like a banshee? He adds that they'd get along way better if the sword just quit the drama and cooperated. Suddenly, the princess steps in, asking for her heirloom back, clearly confused. David warns her if Caldirus keeps refusing to sync up, she's the one who's going to get hurt. Still, he's low-key impressed. Even without the sword's buff, she managed to hold her ground in that deadly mist. She's strong for sure, but David calculates the odds and knows this enemy is way above her pay grade. He needs her to recognize the skill gap before she does something reckless and gets deleted. Meanwhile, despite its owner being in danger, the sword is still refusing to clock in. The protagonist realizes talking is over. It's time to force the issue. He violently triggers the sword's mana, forcing it to manifest its true form. The glow is blinding. David checks out the transformation and nods. Looks like the rumors were true. Caldirus, panicked, asks how he hacked the system. David replies coolly that the sword just needs to be the battery. He will be the driver. He takes control, syncing his skills with the divine blade in perfect harmony. Lightning starts crashing down from the sky as David calls out the camper hiding in the shadows. He spots a spatial crack ahead and announces that it's time for the villain to stop lurking. A single bat flies out. David looks unimpressed, remarking he expected more than a flying rat from a vampire. He thought he was dealing with an evolved species. Suddenly, the bat morphs into a female vampire. David's face says, "Oh, it's you." He greets her as Miss Maid, confirming she's the queen's lackey. The vampire woman looks rattled. She assumed the prince had a squad backing him up. She saw her minions get wiped and realizes now that he soloed the entire dungeon. Drip King David just laughs at her shock. "You're actually incredible. Don't be shy now, come get some." He is totally done with having to crane his neck to look up at her. It is literally a pain. Plus, hanging out up there too long, she might accidentally reveal a little more than she bargained for. Shirley's vampire form does not appreciate the shade. She is fuming, but that is exactly the reaction our protagonist was fishing for. Boom, he launches a divine sword strike instantly, but the vampire lady fires back, a warning if David triggers a catastrophe, the queen is not cleaning up his mess. Ties with the Vultese kingdom, consider them severed. We are talking potential inter-kingdom warfare here. David clocks her vibe immediately. She thinks dropping the human disguise means she has already won. She is 100% certain he is toast. But David just smirks. Her little plan is going nowhere. His cockiness triggers her even more. That is the last straw. She decides it is time to end this guy. She unleashes that dark vampire magic, obliterating everything in its path as the corruption spreads. Yet David weaves through the chaos untouched, casually telling his opponent to take a chill pill. Yeah, bad move. That just makes her angrier. Next thing you know, she is spamming lethal spikes right at him. He leaps off his perch, but those heat-seeking spikes are right on his tail, shredding the pillar he just stood on. A close shave, they barely graze him. Free-falling David dodges a rain of death until he finally sticks the landing on the ground. Like a total boss, his blade dances parrying every single strike with master-level precision. Vampire Lady has to give him props, he is better than expected. But she throws shade, nice moves for a mere human. Our main character claps back, telling her she really needs to work on that anti-human bias. I mean, irony alert, does she not serve a human master? That hits a nerve. Her patience meter just hit 0 after all that trash talk. David notes this is classic vampire lord behavior. They are as irritating as they are overpowered. Not just that they are apex predators, born with insane stats destined to lead the moment they wake up. If the Grand Elf, their one natural predator, did not exist, they would basically be invincible cheat codes. Flashback time. The sword god once dropped some wisdom. To beat a vampire, you have got to tilt them first. Rattle their cage and they get sloppy. He revealed that vampires are drowning in pride. The higher the rank, the more fragile the ego. Back in the now, our boy wonders about the Farron Empire. They worship Harisi. Imagine the absolute drama if they found out what she really is. If the mask slipped, chaos. But enough thinking, David locks back into combat mode. He sidesteps a few hits and swings back with his blade. But she blocks it cold with a magic barrier. And not just any barrier, she summons a literal shield of blood. Gross, but effective. Calderas chimes in. We are likely dealing with a countess here. Maybe not top tier, but as a pureblood she hits harder than a lord. Hearing that David decides there is no plan B, he has to drop her right here, right now. Calderas is skeptical, basically asking, "You sure you got the juice for that, kid?" David affirms, then flips it. Why is the big bad sword scared? Before the sword can answer incoming attack, Shirley sneers, claiming people who act cool in the face of death always end up in a grave. She adds that even the girl with the divine sword blacked out. Shirley plans to beat the prince, but keep him in one piece, mostly. She needs his corpse looking pretty to prove she did her job efficiently. She lunges for the kill, but the protagonist is not about to hand over the win. Instead of freezing up or playing defense like a sitting duck, he pulls a pro-gamer move and charges straight into the danger zone. The vampire scoffs, calling it absolute suicide. She swings again. David does not just dodge, he ghosts her, reappearing right behind her back. He leans in with the ultimate insult, telling her she knows absolutely nothing about swordsmanship. Real swordplay is not just hacking and slashing like a brute. It is an art form. Channeling years of grind, he unleashes Calderas' signature ability right in her face. Panic sets in. She is locked down. Nowhere to run. The strike connects instantly. She gets spiked into the ground like a meteor entering the atmosphere. The impact is nuclear. The terrain is so wrecked, even David is like, "Whoa, I did that." Calderas tries to start a history lesson, but David cuts him off. "Save the lecture, buddy. That was thousands of years ago." He wasn't interested in a history lesson or a monologue. Right now, he just wanted to shut this fight down for good. The protagonist knew the score even if he tried. That blade would never buy him as a legitimate disciple of its original master. Calderas clocked the vampire, making a run for it, but David signaled to hold fire. Chasing her right now was a tactical error. Even the sentient sword was gagging at the stench of this blood tide. But hey, there was a silver lining. That explosion had nuked the source, so the toxic fog finally stopped spreading. The bad news, the ground was still littered with bloodstones, and the protagonist knew exactly what that meant for the civilians. Touch that corruption, and you're either dead or patient zero for a new outbreak. If they didn't purge the infected, it was game over. Right now, the horror was trapped in the arena. But if that containment breached, total mass panic on the outside. With that in mind, Calderas told the protagonist he was insanely lucky to survive such corrosive sludge, admitting his skills were terrifyingly sharp for a rookie. David just shrugged it off, admitting there was some truth to that, but he wasn't letting it go to his head. Still, he knew waking the sword's true aura was going to be a massive grind. His power wasn't built on the standard playbook everyone else used. He was built different. Real mastery happens when high-tier skills collide with deep combat wisdom. That's how a legend is born. And our guy, he was the definition of a master. The sword started sensing that bottomless depth of power radiating off him. Then Calderas dropped a bombshell. He realized the protagonist was wielding both dark mana and holy power simultaneously. That combo shouldn't exist. Calderas was shook, having never seen a hybrid like that, but David just claimed he made a habit of shattering the laws of physics. The sword called him a total lunatic for even attempting a build like that. But the protagonist shot back at Calderas, explaining this madness was actually the result of hundreds of years of hardcore research. But he cut the chit-chat short. Because he had unfinished business and he couldn't pull off the next move solo, he signaled Calderas to jump in. Look, David wasn't playing hero or trying to be a martyr here. But if saving these people helped him juice up his own powers, totally worth the hassle. It wasn't his usual style. But he ran the numbers and liked the odds. So he did something unexpected. He started praying to goddess Freya. petitioning the divine to intervene for the victims of the blood tide. He basically told the goddess, "Hey, fix this mess, because this is way above my pay grade." Calderis was floored, asking, "Is that seriously how you talk to a deity? That's your prayer." It was obvious the protagonist wasn't a church boy, but David had learned a secret from Saintess Daphne. Divine power isn't about blind worship, it's about understanding the mechanics of faith itself. To be specific, you don't need the god's love, you need to spark their curiosity. Since people were dying, he planned to channel the save through the sword, so he was really just asking Freya to sign off on the permit. Calderis scoffed, claiming no self-respecting god would answer that trash prayer. David just laughed. "You really don't get how gods work, do you?" He dropped some wisdom. Divine favor isn't for the boring devout followers. It's reserved for the wild cards who actually make the gods watch the show. Like Calderis said, you can't reverse the life force drain. So the only option was to go nuclear and overload the crystal with a higher tier of energy. He was talking about the ultimate holy magic, the kind of legendary power Saintess Daphne used, the strongest holy arts in history. And let's be real, gods have a soft spot for total psychos, especially the ones who defy all logic. Immediately, boom, a pillar of holy light slammed down from the heavens, engulfing both David and Calderis. The sword was freaking out, recognizing that energy signature immediately, rank 9 divine power. It panicked, thinking it couldn't handle that much juice, accusing the protagonist of trying to melt him down for scrap. But it was the opposite. David couldn't hold that charge alone. He was using the sword as a surge protector to channel that celestial nuke and purify the entire arena instantly. The power was so intense that people miles away saw the sky light up with a blinding flash. It outshone the sun itself. David emerged with ethereal wings, his injuries vanishing like they were never there. The dark crystal shattered into dust and the evil presence evaporated. David groaned, joking that the explosion felt like getting flattened by a semi-truck while throwing some banter at the divine sword. He'd survived the clash, sure, but his stamina tank was flashing empty. He tried to keep his cool, maintain that stoic facade, but a weird sensation rippled across his back, and his legs just gave out. As he crumbled to the floor, a holographic interface flickered into view. Somehow, Davey had pulled up his own status window like he was staring at a gaming HUD, and the stats definitely tweaked. But the real kicker was the new title, Lunatic. Seriously, that feels a bit aggressive. He wondered if Freya was trolling him with that description. High above the entity he assumed was the goddess, just smirked. Apparently she found our protagonist's struggle wildly entertaining. Fade to black, then consciousness returns. While his brain rebooted, he realized something. When was the last time he crashed this hard? For the past 6 months. His sleep had been plagued by anxiety. But this felt different. Deep. Restorative. Like his mind had finally been defragmented. He cracked his eyes open to find Winley hovering over him. She explained he'd been moved to guest quarters in the Phyllis Duchy, staring at him with wide, terrified eyes. He sat up, shaking off the grogginess, and asked for a timestamp. His sister dropped the bomb. He'd been out cold for 2 full days. She admitted she was spiraling, terrified he'd slipped into a coma for good. Seeing her reaction, it hit Davy. She genuinely cared about him, and considering his track record of passing out, her panic was totally valid. Then, Winley brought up a weird dream she had trapped in a crimson fog, saved by her big brother. But it felt too real. Suspicious, she grilled him on what actually went down in the arena. She didn't stop there. While playing nurse, she'd found something on him, a mark etched into his back. She identified it as a stigma. And not a subtle one. This thing was massive, spanning 3 palms in length. Impossible to miss. Davy was shook for a second, but the pieces clicked. That searing pain he felt before passing out, that was the divine tattoo getting inked into his skin. This was uncharted territory, but he knew exactly who to blame. Freya. Did she really have to make the branding so gigantic? Winley interrupted his internal rant, explaining it was actually the healing priest who spotted the stigma first. Now the secret's out. The whole duchy knows, and it's absolute chaos outside. Plus, when they found Davy, the fog had vanished and all that ambient holy energy had condensed right into him. Usually, a stigma marks someone as a deity's favorite, proof of divine love. The silver lining was that the rumors were mostly positive. Still, Winley wasn't satisfied with rumors. She wanted the truth. Davy hesitated. To spill the beans or keep his mouth shut. He knew the consequences. If he revealed his powers now, his journey would hit hard mode immediately. Calculated risk, deny everything. He told her he blacked out before seeing anything. Total amnesia. It was a flimsy excuse, but Winley decided to let it slide and trust her brother. She pivoted, asking about his physical state. He did a quick internal scan. Honestly, he felt cracked. Better than ever. Channeling the 9th circle holy magic into his blade hadn't just worked. It permanently buffed his own holy stats. His mana capacity had skyrocketed. All 3 of his power systems leveled up. He could now manifest an aura blade that would make a swordmaster jealous. Naturally, the holy magic stat saw the biggest evolution. But thanks to the stigma, it dragged his other abilities up with it. A massive power spike. Still, Davy sighed. Why did he always have to nearly die to get a level up? Winley broke his train of thought, filling him in on the madness he missed. While he was snoozing, his maid Amy had a total meltdown when she found out. And it wasn't just the help. Princess Ileana had shown up trying to poach him, claiming her kingdom offered better medical treatment. Smooth move. Davy thanked his sister for handling the drama. Seeing the bags under her eyes, he told her to go crash while he rested up. Before heading out, Winley dropped one last update. Benatus was safe. The guy bailed from the arena the second the tournament got cancelled. He was in the clear. She wished Davy a speedy recovery and finally left the room. The second the door clicked shut, Davy pulled up the system window again to inspect his new divine branding. He clocked the interface immediately looked straight out of an RPG, but the mechanics were alien. Conclusion. Definitely. Freya's handiwork. He didn't know if this glitched into existence because of his prayers, or just a side effect of spamming divine magic. But honestly, who cares? Then a voice sliced through the silence. It teased him about faking a barrier, calling his bluff since he was already used to peeking at other people's stat windows. David froze heart, skipping a beat. Who said that? The voice purred, calling him bold for trying to trick its senses and get cozy like that. But it promised to reveal exactly who was pulling the strings. A second later, the entity manifested looming over him. Look down. The figure scoffed, muttering how embarrassing it was that a mere mortal cracked its seal. But if the gods willed it, who was it to argue? Cue the flashback. David, remembering the moment he discovered the sword god's hidden artistic talent. He'd wondered who Ares was painting with such intensity. Staring at the canvas, horns crimson, eyes, it didn't take a genius to realize this was a portrait of a demon. And not just any grunt. The aura screaming off the canvas suggested raw, unbridled power. The detail was insane. Ares didn't just see this monster, he knew her, intimately. Only a memory etched in trauma could produce that kind of clarity. Ares had whispered, she was beautiful. Not a single goddess in paradise could hold a candle to her. Her name was Purcell, but she was gone. All that remained were the ghosts in her father's head. Back when Ares was still human, he adopted Purcell, raised her, taught her the blade. Then the universe played a cruel joke. He had to strike down his own daughter, sealing her away to end a blood-soaked war. That's how Purcell von Ferran became the legendary Demon Queen of the Abyss. Snap back to reality. David stared at the entity. He recognized her instantly. Purcell smirked. My eyes don't lie, do they? Seeing him paralyzed in shock, she tilted her head. Penny, for your thoughts, David. He blinked. You're a lot shorter than I expected. Moments later, David had Purcell trussed up in ropes. Little rude for a first date, she deadpanned. Just so you know, unlike you humans, I'm not really into this kinky stuff. This isn't a game, David snapped, eyes cold. Purcell sighed, completely unbothered. We just met. Why the hostility? I haven't even tried to kill you yet. She looked genuinely confused. Besides, how are we supposed to have a symbiotic relationship if you're this rude? David frowned. Symbiotic what? The tattoo. On your back, she explained slowly. That's my new condo. A vessel for my soul. David's eyes widened. It clicked. That massive mark wasn't just body art. It was a prison cell designed to hold a demon king. Explanation over Purcell. Demanded release. Seriously, I hate this. It's uncomfortable, and frankly beneath my dignity. David cut the ropes, but kept his guard up. All right. What does a sealed demon queen want with a guy like me? He tightened his grip on his weapon. And make it convincing. No riddles. She dusted herself off. Purcell von Ferran, Queen of the Abyss. The Watcher in the Void. You know that quote, when you stare into the abyss stares back. That's about me. I'm also the reason the Great War started, by the way. Talk about a resume. Up until now, David thought, Calderis was just the holy sword Ares used to skewer the bad guy and save the world. Plot twist. The sword was actually a soul drive holding Purcell sealed by her own dad. And here's the kicker, Purcell didn't act like a typical Hellraiser. David had assumed his power boost came from the goddess Freya. Wrong. Calderis was just my roommate in the blade, Purcell corrected. Friendly soul. We hung out. She looked a bit wistful. If I knew I was getting evicted, I would have said goodbye. Though Calderis wasn't exactly the sentimental type. Getting back to business, Purcell explained that divine will booted her out of the sword and into David. Why? No clue, she shrugged. Frustrating, right? I'm just as confused as you are. But hey, you're the one who channeled holy magic through the sword. You opened the door. This is on you, kid. Besides, she grinned. I'm interested in you. You're special. You're the second person in history to fully unlock that sword's potential. She leaned in close. Speaking of, did you know Ares? David nodded slowly. Yeah, he wouldn't shut up about you. She could actually go back. The Demon Queen was straight up vibing after hearing her pops actually talked about her all the time. Instead of keeping it on the down low, David dropped some wisdom. People gotta learn how to gatekeep their own secrets from each other. And honestly, he was wondering why anyone would even try to cap to a literal demon king. Meanwhile, Purcell wanted to set the record straight. She clarified she wasn't the creep staring from the void. She just borrowed the Wi-Fi password of a higher being, basically. She meant the status window, or what humans usually hype up as the great divinity. Hearing all this, David couldn't wrap his head around a being as OP as Purcell communicating like a total noob. He also wondered what a divinity leaking holy energy expected from a guy like him. Purcell flipped the script and suggested a walk, hinting David could use this chance to show her how lit the outside world actually was. David immediately asked, "What's the payout for me?" Purcell clapped back that he already got paid since he snagged her powers. She claimed with the system window, he could unlock even more broken abilities. David realized she had way more dirt on him than he thought, and he couldn't just sweep that under the rug. Anyway, Purcell insisted it was a sweet deal for him, and she was dying to see how David would return the favor. David had to admit Purcell's buffs were pretty tempting. Giving them up wasn't even an option, so he agreed to play along with her little request. Plus, he accidentally scored a confidant who could listen to his dark secrets without snitching or facing backlash. A bit later, the Felice Duchy's main event, originally a fencing tourney, turned into a massive afterparty following the attack. In the middle of the chaos, David became the main character because rumors about his stigma were blowing up. Because of the clout, he could barely leave his room. Purcell pointed out that since David saved everyone's skins, maybe he should just drop the truth bomb instead of hiding it. After all, one look at the stigma, and people would see a guy flexing a physical manifestation of divine love. But David knew that only 3 saints had popped up in the last 400 years, and a stigma was even rarer. So going public was absolutely off the table. He marched straight to his siblings and told them to pack their bags as soon as possible. He said instead of explaining himself, he just wanted to ghost this place and head home. Winley was totally down, reasoning they hadn't committed any crimes, so they didn't owe anyone an explanation. Besides, this wasn't even holy ground. David thought to himself that actually, maybe for a hot second, this place and half the city really was holy territory. But dipping when things got messy, that was the master plan. Mid-escape on the road home, Purcell asked if bailing like this was really cool. After all, some stands would probably chase him all the way back to his turf, looking for answers. David replied it'd be fine as long as something bigger than him grabbed the public's attention. Later on, Ileana got the news about David's escape. She was absolutely raging, claiming David not only left a massive mess for her to clean up, but also dropped a huge misunderstanding before fleeing with his siblings. He told people he handled the enemy after awakening the Holy Sword, and that the mark appeared because of some hidden buffs inside it. But Ileana knew that was just a massive cap. Seeing the princess so triggered her maid, thought about how it's been 10 years since she started working for Ileana, and wondered what would happen if everyone found out the cold, powerful princess was actually a rebellious, aggressive girl behind the scenes. Ileana barked at her maid to get the knights ready immediately. Back on the road, David watched his siblings crashed out next to each other. He thought they actually looked like they got along. It was nice seeing them not at each other's throats, even if that only happened when they were asleep. Suddenly, Purcell asked if he regretted passing up on Calderas. She mentioned that besides its current owner, David was the only one who knew the divine sword's true vibe. Or maybe he was the only one. She believed he should be the one wielding it. David wished he could, but knew he couldn't handle those holy stats until he recovered his OG strength. As tempting as it sounded, he wasn't a thief, so he wasn't going to try to loot the sword from its owner. Besides, he claimed he didn't really vibe with Calderas' personality, and he wasn't into swinging around massive clunky swords. Plus, he had his eye on a different weapon. Purcell clocked that look in Davy's eyes. Immediately, he was definitely cooking up a scheme. She had to admit she was totally in the dark here. No matter how deep she peered into his psyche, some doors remained locked tight. But pushing that mystery aside, Purcell cut to the chase. "What's the play when we hit home base?" Davy smirked. With the stigma in play, his ops were paralyzed. So taking them out right now, that was the only logical move. But Davy made it clear he never strikes until the board is perfectly set. Plus, Duke Barada and his crew of nobles held way too much sway over the kingdom's politics. Unlike Queen Linus, the royal family couldn't just go nuclear on the nobility without facing serious blowback. Picking them off one by one, way too slow. That stalemate had only inflated the queen's massive ego. However, Davy was already 5 steps ahead with a solution. The moment they touched down, the king summoned the whole squad. Barris tried to take the fall for the chaos, but the king shut that down instantly. He placed the blame squarely on the Valtese kingdom. For blocking the alliance just relieved, Barris made it back in one piece. Then the conversation shifted to the elephant in the room, the stigma. Davy played it cool, explaining that despite being unworthy, he'd somehow piqued divine curiosity and snagged the mark. While the king bought it, the queen looked like she swallowed a lemon. She fought to keep her mask of composure, struggling to hide the rage. She even forced a smile, claiming she was thrilled for the prince's achievement. The king then got serious. He ordered an immediate missive sent to Valtese, doubling down on the demand for an alliance. He dismissed the twins to get some shut-eye after their trek, but signaled for Davy to hang back. Davy broke the silence, noting it had been nearly half a year since. His Majesty actually summoned him. To be precise, this was their first real face-to-face, since Davy woke up from his coma. The king didn't beat around the bush. Do you resent me for that? Davy felt the urge to drop the act, but unloading all his baggage right there didn't feel right either. Either way, he knew his old man had been looking out for him from the shadows through the chief chamberlain. The king mused that any father would spot such a radical shift in his son. And while he wouldn't win any Father of the Year awards, he saw Davy had evolved. That's why he finally granted this audience. The last time they stood like this, a tiny Davy had been on his knees begging his father to save his mother, desperate to know if the king knew she was dying. Davy had screamed that she wasn't sick, she was poisoned, but his father iced him out completely, ordering the guards to drag the crying child away. Davy fought to stay, demanding an answer, but he was powerless to stop it. It took 4 long years for Davy to uncover the cold hard truth about the poison. Yet, the king had kept his mouth shut the entire time. Now towering over the past, Davy looked his father in the eye. Do you sleep well at night? After ditching mom to marry the enemy for the sake of the kingdom, the king replied that the blame lay with him, not his current queen. Davy cut him off. He didn't care about the politics. He just wanted to know, do you regret it? After all, his mother had cried out for the king with her dying breath. No matter how hard Davy tried to purge, the memory that scar was permanent. He had watched the light fade from her tear-filled eyes. The king let out a heavy sigh, admitting he failed as a father. But he insisted that wearing the crown didn't mean doing whatever you pleased. Most of the time, a king had to navigate chaos he barely understood. He looked at Davy live quietly. Get stronger every single day. That way no one can touch you or block your path to the throne. That was the king's endgame, passing the crown to his son. But Davy realized his old man had completely erased his mother from the equation. Davy scoffed. They say a son's duty is to follow in his father's footsteps. But I'm blazing my own trail. If being king meant sacrificing your own flesh and blood for the greater good, then count him out. And while everyone else was thirsty for that power, Davy wasn't drinking the Kool-Aid. He told the king to pass that crown to someone who actually cared. He wouldn't take the title, even at gunpoint. Storming out of the royal hall, Persek remarked. You really know how to be a jerk, don't you? Davy shrugged. Necessary evil. No matter how deep she looked, some things were set in stone. Besides that, chat made Davy realize one thing. Exactly what he was fighting for. Back in his quarters, he told Amy to go full lockdown mode, no visitors. Then Davy walked to the window of his. He stepped out of his room, geared up, and dropped a cold line. Time to dive down the rabbit hole. Fast forward to the Round Kingdom deep inside Black Moon Guild territory. Word on the street, Agent Shirley is officially MIA. Worse yet, the big boss dropped a bombshell. She isn't the only one. A whole squad of his goons vanished into thin air days ago. The intel report. A total disaster. They failed to take out the Round Princes. One guild member scoffed, muttering that these so-called Class A intel squads from HQ are nothing but hype. Total amateurs. The guildmaster shot him a death glare, warning him to watch his mouth if he valued his life. But the guy just doubled down, claiming they didn't even know who the missing woman really was. Plus, no way a couple of brats could cause this much chaos. He puffed up his chest, vowing to hunt down the kids and Shirley himself like a real pro. In his mind, it takes a true killer to handle business like this. Main character syndrome at its finest. The leader's right-hand man asked if they should stop the fool. The boss just smirked. That level of arrogance. It's a death sentence. Let him go. Then he dropped some truth. Shirley might be labeled Class A, but she's way out of their league. Most of the guild is clueless, but she's actually a woman, far deadlier than she looks. Which made zero sense. How does a human weapon like her fail? A simple hit on helpless kids, then just vanish off the face of the earth. Sensing the bad vibes, he decided it was time to bail. But when he tried to buzz his guards, dead silence. A chill ran down his spine. The guildmaster realized something was very wrong and scrambled to react. Too slow. Cold steel pressed against his neck, accompanied by a whisper, think twice before you twitch. His eyes darted to the side. His right-hand man was already on the floor, taken out without a sound. Slam face pressed against his mahogany desk. The intruder noted with relief, just a regular human, not another annoying vampire. The boss panicked thought, where are my guards? Little did he know. The intruder had already wiped out the entire squad before stepping into the room. A cold voice whispered, it doesn't matter how loud you scream. No one is coming. The leader's blood ran cold. He was next on the chopping block. Desperate, he stammered out. Who sent you? Was it the Ruxo Guild? Karsha? The shadow ignored the question. You want to live? Give me the intel. Now. Terrified, the boss folded immediately. Anything, just don't kill me. The grip released. I'll keep it simple, the intruder said. I want the list. Every noble acting as a puppet for the Berrietta family. And I want the dirt on the Duke. Every crime, every shady deal. I know he runs this kingdom from the shadows. He knew the Duke kept leverage files to keep his dogs on a leash, and that those files were stashed right here. The boss tried to bolt, but the intruder stopped him with a single finger. I'm only gonna warn you once. That's when it clicked. This was a master assassin. The shadow leaned in. I'm an expert at sniffing out lies, so don't even think about playing games. Your move, tough guy. Moments later, the intruder walked out with a stack of classified docs in hand. It was David, master of disguise. He scanned the list. This was a goldmine of dirty secrets. Some of it might be fake, sure, but with other guilds left to raid, he could cross-reference and corner every corrupt noble in the kingdom. Perce chimed in. Looks like a bloodbath is on the horizon. David didn't mind the sound of that, but he knew he had to play it smart. Doesn't matter how fancy the title is, every noble has political enemies waiting to stab them in the back, just like that night with his mother. Meanwhile, Marquis Patrice, one of Round's 3 legendary swordmasters, read a mysterious letter and instantly crumbled into despair. He shouted for his butler immediately. He'd uncovered a nightmare. Duke Berrietta was about to become the man who sliced off his own limbs. Back to David tonight's theme, a little midnight house call. Perce floated by, asking, "So what's the ultimate goal here?" David smirked. "You already know. Protect my family, good food, a roof over my head, avoiding drama, and living a long, healthy life." Percy raised an eyebrow. Weird flex for a prince, considering that's basically your life right now. David paused. Well then, I just need to know one thing. He was finally ditching the royal life to head for a pint-sized territory gifted to him by the family. That's where he'd craft his legacy. Plus, this plot of land was smack in the middle of the most high-tech city on the continent. Vengeance. Just a side quest he'd grind along the way. No way was he letting a petty grudge wreck his entire playthrough. Purcell chimed in, claiming he'd speedrun his desires if he just grabbed the crown. To him, ruling a kingdom wasn't much different from running a patch of land. But David clapped back, insisting that micromanaging a tiny turf was way chillier than governing a whole nation. He wanted the simple life, a place he could actually call home. Back in the throne room, the Queen was putting on a show, declaring Prince David the kingdom's MVP for awakening a stigma. Then she dropped the bomb. Why hadn't the king rewarded him for such an epic flex? She argued that since the prince was fully healed and title-ready, it wouldn't be a terrible move to ship him off to manage his own estate. The court was shook. Why was the Queen suddenly hyping up the prince? Internally, she knew she'd never pull a stunt like this under normal circumstances. But after the botched hit on the princes, and Shirley pulling a vanishing act, the situation had gone totally haywire. Worse, the Intelligence Guild, her secret info vault, got blitzed in 7 different spots in a single night. She was spiraling. The guildmaster himself delivered the L to the Queen, claiming they were steamrolled by an untraceable monster. Now the Queen's paranoia was hitting max levels. She was terrified of the fallout. If her dirty laundry got aired out to the wrong people, she could be cancelled for treason. Literal receipts existed. Plus, she was starting to side-eye Marquis Petrus. She suspected he was backing Prince David. If so, the fix was easy: delete the Marquis. But without Shirley to handle the wet work, her best play as queen was to yeet the prince out of the palace. She proposed distancing him, never expecting the king to greenlight it so fast. But that's exactly what went down. The king claimed it was cringe for a grown, uncrowned prince to keep crashing at the palace. He immediately summoned the head chamberlain to pack the prince's bags. The queen was shook, wondering what 4D chess the king was playing. Later, our MC got called in by the king, but he didn't even flinch. He knew the king would eventually clock him as a rival and try to take him out. The king ordered David to head to his turf and level it up to prove his worth. Purcell whispered that the king was probably terrified his son would stage a coup, which is why he was exiling him. But did the king know the prince had already planned this exit strategy? Way before the official order dropped, David figured the royals had their own schemes cooking. He had no business lingering there anyway. He had a grind to finish. Amidst the drama, Purcell noted things were getting messy. Lots of lives were on the line because of David's recent moves. But David was unbothered, believing a full system reset was necessary before the next ruler took the throne. No way was he handing this broken reality over to Varys. Plus, it'd be a bonus if he got the chance to clash with his nemesis in the meantime. As soon as he stepped out, the twins jumped him. They were distraught, begging to know why he had to bounce and if there was anything they could do to fix it. David told them this was actually what he wanted. And yeah, he might look weak compared to the heavies, but he rocked a stigma now, so danger wasn't an issue. He told the twins to have a little faith. Willie swore he'd back David up, whenever, wherever, even for the small stuff. He was all in. The protagonist explained that while the Heinz territory wasn't exactly a 5-star resort, real people called it home. He promised that once he flipped the place into a paradise, he'd send them an invite. Next, our guy hit up Amy, ordering her to raid the Ministry of Finance and the Territory Admin Department to scrape every single document on Heinz. He added that nobody would dare gatekeep the files if she dropped Prince David's name. Purcell cracked a joke that everyone seemed to think the MC was God mode now. Amy just found the whole vibe amusing. She also mentioned his mom had a serious thing for the exotic. Plus, she pointed out that even with his god-tier powers, David hadn't turned into some arrogant, insufferable jerk. That was rare. Hearing that, the MC asked if she actually felt bad for him. Purcell shot back that David was pretty chill compared to his mother. So yeah, maybe she did have a soft spot for him. She told him to take the win. The Demon Queen was basically his fangirl now. David shrugged, admitting it was kinda an honor. A bit later, Amy rolled up with the few scraps of intel she could find. It wasn't much. But the protagonist got the picture. This territory was deep in the boonies. Actually, that worked. Less oversight meant more freedom to build his empire. He was hyped to blaze a trail in this new spot. And he wasn't alone. Purcell was ready to go too. But one look at the files killed the vibe. The territory, known as Hines, was cursed ground. Not that she was shocked. No way they'd hand David a territory without setting a trap. The MC couldn't even argue. Soon enough, they were packed and ready to roll. Amy checked if the whole squad going with David was present. He admitted his circle was tight. Only a handful had sworn loyalty. Just then, Marquis Patrice stepped up to the prince. He told Prince David that bailing on the palace now was the smart play, adding that while he wasn't crowned prince yet, the throne might still be in his future. The Marquis noted David had really leveled up, and if his mom were still here, she'd be beaming with pride. David shut that down, calling himself a disgrace to her name. But the Marquis fired back that if that were true, he deserved to be buried alive for failing to protect the prince. David knew Patrice was legit. He'd figured it out after breaking into the guy's house and finding his secret stash of evidence on who killed David's mom. Patrice told David to hit him up if things went south, swearing to have his back no matter what. David warned that rumors of the Marquis helping him would trigger total chaos. But Patrice didn't flinch. Ignoring the prince would make his vows worthless. In that case, David declared he'd turn that dusty town into a real home, trusting the Marquis to hold it down from inside the palace. David liked the idea of having an insider, hoping the Marquis wouldn't give his enemies a second to breathe while he was gone. Still, he wanted to be the one to deliver the final blow. David figured it would usually take a full day to reach the territory via monoportal. But since this spot was near the capital, a carriage ride would be a breeze. As they rolled out, he watched Purcell, thinking she looked just like a sleeping beauty. The days he'd spent with her had honestly flown by. He noticed she was a total nap queen and wondered if her tiny size was linked to her magic powers, being so weak. Meanwhile, the little one was using his leg as a pillow, so David gently tucked her in with a warm jacket. Outside, a knight called out that they were almost there. Moments later, David spotted the land. The Hines territory sat in the kingdom's east. It was a barren wasteland, with nothing but sand for miles, a place where only monsters seemed to vibe. The only upside was the main highway to the capital, cutting right through it. If they fixed up those roads, this place could become a major transport hub. But this wasn't your average fixer-upper. It was a cursed, dry hellhole where nothing grew, a place everyone else looked down on. Someone ran it before they died, but 5 years back, a brutal drought wiped everything out. The weird part, nobody knew what caused the devastation. With that in mind, David popped open his status window to scan the territory's stats. Immediately, he clocked a glitch. One of the data points was incomplete. Purcell piped up, calling it a curse. She explained that this particular curse spreads like a bad addiction, starts small, then spirals out of control. David hadn't realized remnants of black magic were still lurking in the world. Apparently, some local had ticked off a sorcerer back in the day. He tried to use purification magic to clean the area. However, Purcell warned him breaking a curse this old wasn't going to be a walk in the park. Breaking a curse this gnarly wasn't just hard, it was near impossible. The blight had infected the entire territory. Life here was currently as extinct as the dark arts themselves, considering those cursed warlocks vanished ages ago. The second they rolled up, a squad blocked Davy's caravan, demanding ID like they owned the place. Davy scanned their so-called defenses. Pathetic. He wondered if having guards on the clock was a flex or just a sad sign of desperation. To cut the tension, the prince stepped out of the carriage. "We're all fam here," he declared. "No need to throw hands." The guards instantly clocked him. They apologized profusely for the rough welcome. But looking at their ragged state, Davy felt a chill. He asked, "When did you get the memo about my arrival?" The guard replied, "It was 2 days ago." Davy narrowed his eyes. Any monster raids since then? The sheer terror in the guard's eyes screamed the answer. That settled it. Davy announced that before tackling the curse, he had to exterminate the goblin pest problem first. Captain Montmere stepped forward. He explained that in the power vacuum he had to step up as leader. But now that the prince was here, he was ready to hand over the reins. Davy nodded. "You guys ground hard. From now on, you're promoted to official guards." He assigned a lieutenant to whip them into shape and told the captain to get his squad organized. I don't vibe with wasted talent, Davy warned. Then he dangled the carrot if Montmere leveled up his game. Davy would drop a noble title on him. The prince still had the authority to make that happen. Later, Davy ran a tactical scan. Ancient or not, this fortress was built like a tank, with a solid defense line. So how did the goblins manage to breach the perimeter? Burnout, Montmere admitted. The guards were running on fumes. Result, dozens of homes torched, and citizens snatched. Worse, they had zero supplies left for the brutal winter ahead. Even the farmers were starving. Berserk dropped a truth bomb. Your cash can't buy food that doesn't exist. And fixing the walls, pointless. They'll crumble in 2 years max. Davy smirked. Keep that up and I'm promoting you to my personal secretary. She shut that down fast, because that meant less nap time. Still, Davy was running out of moves. He tossed a heavy bag of coin to the guard leader. Buy everything. Provisions, materials, clear out the market. Amy, tagging along, side-eyed him. Where are you still getting this cash? Davy spun a lame excuse. But truth is, he totally looted the Intelligence Guild's vault. Berserk chimed in. No honor among thieves, you know. Go to sleep and stop lecturing me, Davy shot back. Bernil, the ex-palace butler who ditched his post. To follow, the prince stepped up. I'll handle the shopping run. Being kin to Vespas, the guy was clutch. I'll secure everything your highness needs. Davy gave the green light but emphasized speed. Skeleton crew stays here. Everyone else rally with the knights. Outside, Davy took the stage to address the locals. He formally introduced himself as the new ruler of this territory. He declared he was fully aware of the goblin kidnappings. I know some want revenge, but I know most of you are terrified and just want to hide. You aren't all warriors, the prince boomed, but we can't just sit here. If we do sooner or later, the goblins will come back for seconds. He didn't just want to defend. He wanted to wipe the threat off the map. The crowd murmured, his words hit home. But they were the last line of defense, broken and exhausted. What could they actually do? Davy cut through the doubt. We just need one clean win, one victory, and the raids stop. He knew what they saw, just another rich noble with a fancy bloodline, but no spine. I am not just a prince, he roared. I am the lord of the Heinz territory. You are my family now, and I don't let my family die. He knew talk was cheap, so he played his ace. I bear a stigma sent by the gods. That got their attention. But if you can't believe in miracles, then take this as a direct order. No one dies without my permission. Davy dropped the mic. The squad rolls into the demon forest, but the vibes are off. Purcell is stressing, warning Davy that dragging these guys out here, while they're running on fumes and totally unprepared, is a suicide mission. Davy ain't hearing it though. He claims 150 heads are plenty. Purcell claps back, reminding him that overconfidence is a fast track to the grave. Plus, battle numbers are volatile. Things change fast. Davy insists he's got the reins, prompting Purcell to admit that Davy's ability to gaslight everyone into thinking he's always right is actually his most impressive trait. Up ahead, the guard captain points it out once they clear that mountain. They'll hit the goblin nest. They arrive and Davy pauses. It looks like a ghost town. He's baffled. How do orcs and goblins shack up in a dump like this? Montmoret breaks it down. It's an abandoned village that's been repurposed as a monster base. Suddenly, tension spikes. One of the rookies is shaking with pure rage. The goblins butchered his best friend. Davy steps up, validating the kid's pain. He tells the squad to channel that fury, fight like hell, and honor their fallen brothers by painting the ground with enemy blood. Davy respects that loyalty. That bond deep enough to grieve friends like family. He declares this the kill zone. Then he kicks things off by letting an arrow fly. Thwip. A clueless goblin catches the arrow with his face instant drop. But this isn't just wood and steel. The payload detonates, setting the entire zone ablaze. The guards freak out. They thought this was a stealth mission, not a full-blown frontal assault. Davy shuts down the panic immediately, promising that nobody dies on his watch. Watching the flames, Davy grins. Bullseye. That wasn't a normal shot. He used an arrow crafted by the bow god, channeling absolute Apollonian mastery. It's doing exactly what it was made for. To the untrained eye, it looks like chaos, but this is high-tier warfare. It's a trap originally designed for massive battlefields, but the MC had to break it out early. He's not the type to half-send it over small details. Time to act like a lord. He blasts the whole squad with battle buffs. Purcell whispers, Yo, is it cool to use magic on normies like this? Davy shrugs. They won't even realize they're enchanted. All he needs is for that adrenaline to kick in. Now that the squad is buffed to the gills, the protagonist notes that regular grunts never get this VIP treatment. Even the elite paladins of Valhalla don't taste level 7 holy magic. That's Pope tier stuff. Davy gives the green light. Unleash every ounce of hate you've been holding back. He figures they've been dying for this release. Charge. The MC underestimated their bloodlust. Watching them move, he realizes they aren't just fighting, they're hungry. The guards enter a total battle trance, and the script flips. The goblins, usually the ones handing out nightmares, are now the ones wetting themselves. It's a wrap. The guards previously shaky realize they're absolute units right now. Davy watches the skirmish turn into a straight-up slaughter. He hangs back on support duty, letting them vent their rage while he spams heals on anyone who gets scratched. He reminds them, I didn't give anyone permission to die, so watch your six. You aren't invincible. But then adds the kicker, if you get hit, I'll patch you up, so go wild. The power gap is so massive. Davy almost feels bad for the monsters. Almost. The squad wipes the floor with them in record time. Then they turn to thank their new lord. Davy winces, he's not used to the worship. It feels kinda cringe. He cuts the celebration short. Job's not done. We've still got hostages to save. As he moves out, the MC reflects. His plan was just to cure their cowardice, but he might have overcorrected. Now they're looking at him like a messiah. Next day, the vibe is intense. The squad looks ready for a crusade, even though it's just goblin cleanup. Davy kills the mood by picking only 10 guys for the mission. The rest are bummed. They're benched. The guard captain side-eyes the situation. Their lord is just a 16-year-old kid riding the high of a rookie win. He figures Davy is just hyped up on adrenaline. He thinks reality is going to hit the kid hard real soon. Little does he know, the gate guards froze jaws, practically hitting the dirt. Their lord wasn't just back. He was strolling in completely unscathed with the whole squad intact. It didn't take long for the realization to hit. With just a skeleton crew, the boss had speedrun the battle, wiping out the remaining goblins in record time. Our main character started sweating nervously. The way his team was looking at him, people were going to think he'd brainwashed them with some high-tier hypnosis spell. He just wanted a clean run where nobody died. But Selka dropped a truth bomb warning that if he kept playing the savior, he'd accidentally start a full-blown cult, or some kind of weird fan club. But David killed the mood with a reality check. There were still straggler goblins out there, meaning the grind never stops. He'd have to keep leading these raids and clearing the map while